This is NXT superstar Dexter Loomis, and I want you to do me a favor. Check out GoodMicWork commentaries on YouTube. Listen to the podcast, subscribe. And if you don't, we're gonna have a problem.
Yo, what the hell was that, son? What are we looking at here? My God, what's going on, guys? Welcome to your WWE Monday Night Rehash Raw review for August 3rd, 2020. I gotta say, that's one of the weirdest, wackiest shows I've ever seen. I'm not necessarily complaining about that because anything is better than the phoned-in nonsense that we've been used to for the better part of a few years. But man, were they just pulling shit right out of their asses tonight. I can't believe what we even saw just based on the just sheer weirdness of it. I didn't do a sound check, so I'm checking myself right now. All right, good. We're up and running. Like I said, I mean, it's better than just the same old boring day in, day out nonsense that we've been seeing so much of, to where it feels like there's no effort, no energy, no creativity, no ambition whatsoever put behind any of these shows. It's almost like they're just going through the motions. And then all of a sudden, we hear reports throughout the day today prior to Monday Night Raw that really crazy things are going on backstage. Most of it bad. Most of it a lot of disorganization, a lot of clusterfuckness, Vince McMahon on a tirade, people can't figure out decisions, the tapings are going horribly, and changes are being made left and right, and they're incomplete. And every single thing we heard rumbling around today on Twitter, on the news sites, and things like that were all highly negative towards the show, and they were all pointing towards a really good chance of seeing a terrible show tonight. And when you started hearing some of the rumors, the first one was Shane McMahon. WWE had announced that themselves, that he'll be on the show tonight, so that's random and out of nowhere. And I believe it was Fightful Select, when I was reading so much stuff today, were the ones, I believe, I hope I'm crediting them right, that had mentioned something about shoot fighting and exotic dancers. And so when you read this, you're like, what the hell am I even looking at here? What am I reading? What are we going to see tonight? And a lot of that stuff actually came true. There was also talk of a brand new faction debuting, and a lot of seeds were planted to that. They were throwing Molotov cocktails at production equipment. They're poisoning Montez Ford. They're fucking with the lights and the production equipment. They're creating all sorts of chaos and wreaking havoc everywhere. They even tipped over some boxes that Charlie Caruso was on the case of. Oh my God, who tipped over the boxes? What kind of violent fearless individual would have guts enough to actually tip over a box? Got to get to the bottom of that. So it was just, saying this stuff out loud, it's almost like, what? This is not what I expected on Raw tonight. So I'm actually okay with it because it's so batshit nuts, and it leaves us so much room to talk, whether it's critical or whether some of the stuff some of you liked. I'd like to hear that as well. Which weird stuff did you like? Which weird stuff did you hate? And where do you think some of it is going to lead? And I feel like we had two, big stories on the show. One was the Raw Underground stuff, but then the other was the identity of this faction that we had heard teased earlier on in the day. And I figured with everything else going on with Asuka and Sasha, Drew and Orton, the Hurt Business, the U.S. title match, and the Shane McMahon stuff, I thought it was a pretty good chance that we weren't going to see this new faction tonight. They were not going to be revealed to us, and I'm glad that they didn't, because that might have been sensory overload. My what the fuck-o-meter already overheated and exploded about an hour and a half through the show. So I don't think I could have handled some crazy new group or some crazy new faction revealing themselves to us at the end of the show. The show ended very bizarrely, and we still have a lot of unanswered questions. And if nothing else, it gives you a reason to tune in next week. And we have never had a reason to tune in next week. When was the last time we gave a shit? Probably when Vince McMahon blew up in the limo. And that was one of the most tragic weekends in wrestling history, probably the most tragic. And that was the last time I can remember as a fan saying, you know what, I need to kind of tune in next week to see how they resolve that. But we never got it. So here, it's one of those rare occasions to where, they actually have to follow up with some shit next week, and they can't just, do these time-filling matches and time-filling segments that are just the same crap every single week. They got to get funky now, and they got to get a little bit creative. And I think we saw a lot of weird stuff, not all good tonight, a lot of hokey stuff and some of it bad, but we saw a little bit of good too. At least WWE may be pointing themselves in a good direction for a couple of their angles and their feuds for SummerSlam, because that's coming up in just 3 weeks, and they need to fill that card. So they took some steps to do that tonight. This is 3 days after a really interesting climax, or conclusion, to SmackDown on Friday with The Fiend clawing Alexa Bliss. Didn't expect the show to go in that direction either on Friday. So there's a glimmer of hope here. Again, I have zero faith in WWE's creative process. I think that the writing and the booking and everything back there and all the stories we've heard, you're not just going to flip a switch and make it good overnight. There's just no way you can do that. So even though tonight was promising, even though tonight left us a lot of questions in our mind and definitely a reason to tune into future shows, can they keep this up? Can they, kind of grasp our attention and hold us, for several months in the face of this pandemic? I say no. I don't think they have it in them. But at least for one night, and occasionally, we can get good pay-per-views, good matches, good segments, and tonight we got a really weird show. So there's a lot to get into. There's a lot to chew on and digest here. I'm going to go in order of the show when we start talking about the results here. Let me pull up my notes, actually, so I have them in front of me. As I'm talking to you guys, I'm cruising over here to the chat real quick, say hello to you guys, answer a couple super chats, and then we'll start talking about the weirdness. And I don't even know. We got news to get into, too. I mean, shit, The Rock bought the XFL today. I had just read prior to going live here that there has been a motion. Creditors have filed a motion to prevent the sale to Redbird Capital, which is the investment firm I think that The Rock and his ex-husband Danny are partnering up with to purchase the XFL. So there may be some hurdles to go through until that becomes official. But if that all goes through, it's good to know that XFL is staying in wrestling, sort of, and it's got some investors behind it that, aren't just going to have it to have it. They're going to try to, make it successful, and that's good. Apparently just hours before a lot of the assets and stuff were going to go up for auction, that's when this deal was made. So maybe that's the issues that the creditors have because bankruptcy was filed. And that'll, I'm sure, will play out in the next few days as well. So that's kind of an interesting story. We'll make sure we touch on it all as we go through here tonight. Make sure you smash that thumbs up. Since Raw was interesting tonight, we might have some new listeners or some new viewers or watchers and things like that. So if you're new, please smash the subscribe button. I'm here every Monday night talking about Raw, no matter how good or bad the show can be. Barry, are you the first one in here? I think you are, with a super chat. Thanks, dude. Good to see you. Appreciate the $2. Greg missed his chance to buy the XFL. I know. Yeah, I got a couple $100 in my wallet. I could have at least made an offer. It's kind of shitty they didn't even give me a chance, but whatever. It's in The Rock's hands now, and I guess he's the next best thing after me. Devlin, good to see you as well. My two men from Hawaii are both here. Thanks for the 5. From what I heard, this show was a mess. Glad I'm not watching Raw and SmackDown. Hopefully it gets better post-pandemic. You should have watched this one just because of the entertainment value. Like, it was... You almost were like, what the hell? There was so much confusion online. That was the funnest part, is actually, for once being on Twitter, was actually quite entertaining because it was more confusion than anger, and unfortunately on Raws and SmackDowns and everything, it's just so much negative, and the fans feed into the negative. Seth Rollins had an interesting promo tonight, which we'll talk about later on when he was talking to Tom Phillips. And he's like, you need to be more responsible. You have a voice, and these brainless fucks that follow you and listen to you, you're putting that shit in your head, creating a bias. I feel like he's cutting that promo right on YouTubers, which I found was funny, at least wrestling YouTubers. So it was nice to see for once more people just kind of questioning the wackiness of it than just being downright angry and mad. And that was a nice change of pace because I cannot stand the fucking negativity. Even when the fans have a reason to be negative sometimes, they take it to such a ridiculous level, it's just a turnoff. So tonight was just more fun because we were all just, scratching our heads like, well, didn't expect this. And I think that's a positive thing. But yeah, you should have checked this one out, definitely, because it was weird as hell. But we're going to get into it in a second. Joshua, thanks, dude. Appreciate the $5 drop. So does that mean we will know what The Rock will be cooking in the concession stands at the XFL? I don't know. I hope he cooks something good. They better have some good food there. I was trying to think of catchphrases to go along with the XFL today and tweeting some shit. I had a 4th and Goal Boulevard, lay the touchdown on you. You guys can come up with some more stuff if you can think of any fun ways to connect The Rock and the XFL. I want to hear it. Zane, appreciate the $5 as well. Thank you, man. I thought Shane McMahon would give a possible SummerSlam location. Yeah, I feel like we're on the verge of that. I mean, they got to come up with something, and if they do have ideas in their head, they can't just throw the shit together 6 days ahead of time. They got to kind of do it. So I'm hoping they know, and they just haven't informed us yet. We talked about that on Saturday, that I was expecting an announcement tonight, because you can't just, well, I guess they did for WrestleMania. They changed it last minute, but you don't want to just hit the fans with that the final week or on the go-home show. Give us an idea of what we're going to see. Might be fun. So I think if they know, they should tell us ASAP. And Antoine, good to see you too, man. Appreciate the $10. Just tuned in, so I don't know, but I like the fact that I didn't know what was going on, and I have to invest. Exactly. We were just talking about that. I know people are going to crap on it, but it was a good show tonight. Looking forward to it. Yeah, that was kind of the point I was just making there, is at least, if you're somewhat interested in wrestling, next week Raw really won't be that much of a chore, because we'll get some questions answered, hopefully. And when you think about this isn't just some random middle time of the year. We got SummerSlam coming up in just a couple of weeks. So the implications here are a little bit more serious than they would be if they just said, oh, let's just do this shit in the middle of October for no reason, just to get some buzz going and get our shitty ratings up. They're doing this and coupling with it with the same build as, your second biggest pay-per-view of the year, and that can make all this stuff better. So yeah, you're right. At least it forces you to be invested, and like I said, it's better than what they were doing. I'm not saying it's great. I'm just saying it's better. It's better than what they were doing. All right, well, I appreciate everybody being here already. Let's jump into the results here, because we got to start talking about it, and we'll circle back and touch more on The Rock and the XFL. We've got some AEW Dynamite news as well, because the NBA playoffs are coming up, so they're moving. I think they're next, I forget the exact dates. I want to say it's like the next 3 Dynamites are going to be moved to a different day, because the playoffs are going to be on Wednesdays. So the first 2 are just going to be moved to the next day, to Thursday nights, but the Dynamite the week of SummerSlam, they're going to bump to Saturday to go head-to-head with TakeOver 30 on the 22nd, which is interesting and cool, because I think TakeOver is going to be awesome, and I will watch anything. I will watch Lee and Cross battle ahead of anything else, so I will not be watching Dynamite that night if it's going head-to-head with TakeOver. But that's kind of the shit WWE does. They pulled the Great American Bash out of their ass just to fuck with Fyter Fest, so now AEW is kind of doing the same thing back. I like it. That's what wars are about. So if there's time, we'll get into a little bit of that Dynamite news, and it might be interesting to see how the ratings do on those off nights if they drew higher than Wednesdays, because now they're running unopposed, and they can maybe crack that million viewer mark, provided the word gets out to enough of their audience, which I'm sure it will, because wrestling fans, especially diehards, are nuts, and we know everything. So we'll get into more about that later on at the end, if you guys so choose. But let's get into Raw tonight, because it started off, they set the tone really early. The minute we went on the air, the announcers welcomed us to the show, and within 30 seconds into the show, we've got lighting flickers, and we got shit going on. So, they were making it sound like, what's going on? Did we not pay our electric bill? And we've seen the lights being messed with lots of times before throughout the years. It's always The Undertaker. It's always Kane. It's always the spirit of The Undertaker, some shit like that. So right off the bat, they had you guessing that, are the lights going out just one of the many things that this faction is doing to screw up the show, or is there a deeper meaning behind the lights? We just saw Aleister Black get his ass kicked last week by the Monday Night Messiah. A lot of rumors about the future of Aleister Black in the company, and some rumors of possibly a character change. So I think since we're only 1 week removed from his eye being gouged and his head being stomped, that maybe it's a little bit too early for us to talk about him being behind all this stuff. But I think it would be a good thing to do, because it had a very dark tone to it tonight. There was lots of cutbacks to that locker room door with that giant dude guarding it, and it was just dark. Everything was dark. It wasn't well lit or anything. It was a small camera kind of on the floor looking up to make the dude look even bigger. Just kind of very like ominous and darker type of tones to what they were doing. Then you had the dudes in the hoods that for a minute I just thought were the ninjas. So now we got 2 factions that are both dressed in like ninja outfits. So they're out there, lighting the production or the electrical box or whatever the hell that was on fire, and all of it just seemed really dark. So I don't know if this is an existing faction like Undisputed Era, or if this is just a group of maybe disgruntled guys. That's almost what I'm leaning towards here based on what we saw tonight, is maybe it's a lot of the guys the fans clamor for online, the Mustafa Ali's, the Aleister Blacks. You guys can probably think of 70,000 other fucking examples in this company, and take guys like that the fans feel aren't being used properly and put them in a faction to where they're going to make their own success That's been done to death, though, throughout the years. We've seen that type of faction created many, many times in the past. So if you're going to do it, you're going to have to do it differently because we've just kind of already seen this type of stuff. Even it's not really totally the same, but the Nexus, when they came in and attacked and they tore up the ring and Daniel Bryan got fired for choking Justin Roberts, and they had that that huge segment on Raw that was one of the most interesting of the time. They could do something like that, but again, it has been stuff that we've seen tonight or seen before, and we saw a lot of rehashes tonight that we're going to get into, because when we talk about Shane McMahon, that was reminiscent of the Brawl for All. When we talk about Montez Ford, that was reminiscent of Shawn Michaels passing out on Raw with the post-concussion syndrome crap after getting the enziguri from Owen Hart the night after Survivor Series in 1995. And then at the very end, when you got Seth Rollins talking smack to Tom Phillips, Samoa Joe stands up and says, and kind of gets in his face. That's very reminiscent of Jerry Lawler protecting Jim Ross from Taz when Taz was messing with him 20 years ago. I actually was there for SummerSlam that year in 2000 when Lawler took on Taz. So there was a lot of those type of angles, not really rehashed, but definitely influenced some of the angles that I think we saw tonight. And I don't think that's necessarily bad because I'm a mark for the old days, and I like kind of seeing them just maybe give a little nod to the past here or there with some of their angles. The thing that was weird is we just saw so much of that tonight. And that's kind of why I thought this Raw was a little bit bonkers. But anyway, the lights go out and the announcer's kind of like, oh, what the fuck's going on? We get our very first match. And it's for the U.S. title. Apollo Crews is back. This match was advertised as well prior to the show, but I didn't believe it because they've already advertised like 2 or 3 Apollo matches and then he wasn't there and pay-per-views and Raws and things like that. But he was actually back. He had the old United States title with him, so we haven't seen the last of that yet. He still had it because MVP's been parading around with the new one. So it was, the referee had both titles in his hand. It kind of felt like, the dual intercontinental title thing or whatever from years ago. So that was another kind of similarity there because that's another thing that we've seen, where a champion is stripped or something, but he keeps the belt and they're crowned a new champion and he comes back and says, I'm the real champion. This is done, but it's almost inverted because usually it's the heel doing that. And Apollo is the one that kind of never lost the title, but MVP's parading around with it. So they finally blew this off. I was kind of half-ass rooting for MVP just for the momentum of the Hurt Business and the faction. And the fact that, maybe Lashley, I thought Lashley would be next in line for the U.S. title, but maybe if Drew survives Orton, they try to figure out a way to put Drew and Lashley back together, even though we've already seen that a few times since WrestleMania. I thought maybe they were going to use Lashley for that. But in the end, Apollo got his revenge. He's been out of action for so long. He hasn't even had a chance to carry that brand new belt yet. So I'm certainly not going to complain that he got the victory here. He should beat him. He beat him with his power bomb move or whatever it was. So, and I believe Lashley and Shelton were both out there, were they not? So that was a pretty big hill for Apollo to climb. He won, and he is now finally officially the United States title holder, and he can enjoy that new pretty title until someone takes it off of him. Now, later on, MVP cuts a promo. He's angry about everything. He's on the outside of the ring yelling at the announcers. He's basically blaming and that's another blast from the past. That's another rehash. He started, that wasn't an angle. But he started mentioning the term unsafe working environment. And that reminds me of 1997 when Shawn and Brett got in the little hair-pulling fight, and Shawn was trying to use that as a way to get out of his contract to go to WCW. He very much wanted out. He somehow reconciled in time to be the special guest referee at SummerSlam 1997 that went down 23 years ago to the day. Today is the anniversary of that show. I'll never forget it. But that kind of, when MVP was saying that, it reminded me of the Shawn Brett fight. So he's mad. He's blaming the lights. He said the lights are flickering, made it unsafe, and that's why he lost. And he wants a rematch against Apollo at SummerSlam. Apollo would go on to accept this challenge, by the way. So I kind of thought it would be Lashley taking the title from Apollo, but MVP is going to continue to challenge for it. And the Hurt Business wasn't done. They were busy dudes on this night. Next up, we go backstage. We've got a Bayley and Sasha promo. They're with one of the little announcers. They show kind of a recap package that's voiced and edited to talk about what role models and legends they are, showing Sasha winning the title last week, showing Kyrie getting beat down. It's then kind of abruptly interrupted by Asuka, who's just in front of a video wall or a green screen or something, and she's screaming. She's pissed. And I said this on Saturday that I was at least interested to see stark raving pissed off Asuka, because that's the Asuka that I like. I wouldn't mess with that Asuka, and I want to see that. So she's mad, and she says Revenge will be sweet and all of that. Bayley and Sasha are mad that she interrupted their little video deal, and that's when Shayna Baszler shows up. She comes into frame. She gets in their both of their faces, tells them both to shut the fuck up, and she hits Sasha with a pretty stiff shot right to the jaw. Looked pretty good. Sasha goes down, and I liked kind of Shayna's intensity and her unwillingness to put up with any of their over-the-top, obnoxious crap. And I like that about Shayna. That would set up a match, actually, between Shayna and Sasha later on that I think could main event a pay-per-view, but we got it right here in the middle of the show. After that, we get a Kevin Owens show. So Kevin Owens, he would be confronted by Ric Flair later on, where Kevin Owens would be accused of being a guidance counselor for helping out people with their problems by Ric Flair. And Owens is backstage first. He's approached by the Iconics. He doesn't have time for their nonsense. He's like, I got a show to do. Get the hell out of my face. You're both annoying. He goes out to the ring, calls out Ruby Riott, who comes out there and talks about, her return to wrestling, and she brings up Liv Morgan a little bit and says that she, was kind of upset that they weren't able to, I guess, reconcile the friendship or something, and does a pretty good job of, kind of telling her story, and Kevin Owens seems eager to help. He calls out then Liv Morgan. He goes, no, I want to bring her out here right now. Ruby's all skeptical and hesitant. He's like, no, let's bring her out here. Let's figure this out. We got to get you girls back on the same page again. Liv comes out, and even though I have no real interest in what they were saying, I thought they both did a really good job, especially Ruby, when she was cutting that promo. And she goes, when you came back and, you didn't need me, that hurt a little bit. And they really I just thought she really nailed the promo, even though for a wrestling fan like me, this is a storyline that's not that interesting to me personally as a fan. Maybe for a 13-year-old girl, it is. And I thought that Ruby did a good job getting the emotion and everything across in the promo. So even though the angle's not for me, I still got to praise the promo work. I thought it was pretty good. They wind up kind of, they're not really at odds. They both feel remorse for the way it went down. And that's when they're interrupted by the Iconics. They come out there talking smack. This whole thing leads to a match. I think they go to commercial. They come back, and it's Liv and Ruby Riott taking on the Iconics. It's sort of a Riott Squad reunion. I kind of thought they were going to maybe bring out Sarah Logan. Don't really know what the deal with her is. Since her release, there was rumors of her coming back and everything. So would be cool to see her get back in the mix here. Now we got the tag match, and I was a little bit on the edge of my seat here because I'm like, I really liked what Liv and Ruby did on the Kevin Owens show, with the promo work and stuff. So I'm like, if they fucking lost to these two obnoxious idiots, I'm going to lose my mind. But they didn't. Luckily, Liv, did Liv pin Peyton? I think it was Liv pinning Peyton. I don't remember. I know Liv got the pinfall there, and it looks like the Riott Squad are back together. The Iconics continue the attack, and they fight them off, and they go up the ramp there. And Liv and Ruby look like they're back on the same page. That's good. And if they don't reform the Riott Squad like as a 3-person faction, I'm perfectly fine with the Riott Squad being a tag team because we have women's tag team championship belts in this company. You need some teams. Obviously, WWE wasn't doing anything with them in singles. So if you put them together and make them tag team contenders, they can win the titles. I'll take Ruby and Liv winning the titles virtually over any team that they put together aside from, like the Kabukis and Sasha and Bayley, of course. So I'm all for them being a permanent team, a permanent fixture, and I would love for them to taste gold. I think that would be great for them. All in all, good stuff. Let me cruise back over here to the chat since we got some super dupers rolling in, and then we'll get back to the Raw results. Let me see. Antoine, I got yours there, but you got another one. Thanks again, dude, for $5 more. So you're saying the XFL hit rock bottom. There you go. Exactly. They almost did. I mean, hell, going to auction, filing for bankruptcy, that qualifies. Yeah, rock bottom. Good one there. Stone Cold, good to see you too, man. Appreciate the $2. Rocking the XFL, gonna lay the sack down. There you go. That's another good one. Lay the sack down. I didn't even think about that one. Good stuff. Chris Miner, appreciate the 5. Didn't watch Raw tonight. We chose to pick a random pay-per-view and saw Bad Blood 2004. That was a good one. Was I there? I might have been at that one. No, I was at Judgment Day. I was at a Kevin Nash and Triple H match. I can't remember what the fuck it was. But yeah, that was Hell in the Cell or something, wasn't it? Nash and Triple H? I don't know. I don't remember. But I hope you enjoyed that. You should have turned into Raw, though, because it was crazy. That Eugene character makes me cringe today. Definitely doesn't hold up. It does not. Oh, yeah, no, that was a different... I'm thinking 2003. Yeah. looking back, I kind of feel like Eugene had promise. I didn't like it at first, and I remember being real disappointed at SummerSlam because he worked Triple H, right? And I liked the build where, like, William Regal got beat up or something, and you really felt that Eugene was going to come out of his shell and turn into a killer at SummerSlam. And there was going to be this, like, bloody brawl between the two, and it was such a ridiculous letdown. That's kind of what I remember of that, if my memory serves. But I hope you enjoyed the pay-per-view, because tonight's Raw was just odd. And Zane, appreciate the very generous $20. Thanks, man. I know that you don't want to hear spoilers. I don't care about spoilers. I just don't want my audience to hear them if they don't want to. But probably already heard about it, but don't care much for it. Word is Eric Bischoff will be the moderator for the debate with Orange Cassidy and company. Okay, well, they were plugging somebody major to be the moderator, so I knew it would be. And Bischoff would be good. I'd love to see Bischoff there. He could throw out some little snide comment on the WWE or something. He's I guess he's in relatively okay with the AEW crew. I know he doesn't like Alvarez and Meltzer and shit, but they were all on the cruise together with me in January. I saw Bischoff and talked to him at the bar a little bit, so I think he'd be perfect for it. Hell yeah. Eric Bischoff still has an on-screen presence, I feel like. I always thought he was a good promo, and he did a great job in his GM role, and he is a guy AEW should bring in, I think. Who's next? Spaz, what's going on, dude? Appreciate it. Good to see you, and thanks for the $5. Greg, man, help. What the hell did I just watch? I don't know. And it's weird, too, because last night I was having the most wackiest dreams, the most effed up dreams, and I was convinced that I was still sleeping. Like, during some of this Raw, I'm like, okay, this is just too weird. I'm going to wake up any second. But now I'm streaming, so if I wake up in a little while, I guess it's all still happening. I guess I'll know if it's a dream if somebody hits me with $1 million super chat. You know what I mean? Danielle Saunders, how's it going? Danielle's my sister's name. Oh, yeah, that's right. Sarah Logan's pregnant. I forgot about that. Thank you for that. Thank you for filling me in. Yeah, you can't be wrestling when you got a bun in the oven. Jordan Card, appreciate the $2 as well. Interesting Raw. Interesting's interesting word. Hopefully the start of something new. Yeah, and that was I mentioned that earlier on, is that we have that hope and that optimism, at least some fans do. But even the most optimistic, like myself, I have like zero faith in WWE because they always let us down. Always. You know, so the minute we get excited about something, it's like anybody can have a good day type of thing. You know, even a bench warmer can score 20 points if he just has a crazy day. So I think if we just get one random Raw, you know, yes, it does give us a reason to tune in next week, but can they keep it up? And my gut, based on, you know, my experience from observing WWE, tells me no, because I have no reason to think otherwise. But for tonight's purposes, I think it was pretty good. Definitely made me want to have a beer. About halfway through it, I had to crack open a Stella. I'm like, okay, it's time to drink because this is cray, as the kids would say. Like I said, throughout the night, we had lots of cutbacks to that door, that big, ominous, dark door with that huge dude guarding it. And he's not I don't know if he's the giant. He didn't look that tall because I know the Ninja is like 7 feet tall or whatever, but couldn't tell who he is, but he's a monster of a man. So he was guarding the door. They did a lot of that. And we can only assume that that's where the faction is hanging out. And, you know, people have brought up names like Devlin did a minute ago, like Ricochet. You know, we got Aleister Black and lots of other guys that we can mention that would be good examples of dudes that weren't properly, you know, treated in the WWE and could form this faction of angry people out to make their own success. And I like that. But it has to be done with a certain level of freshness, because that overall concept, I think, has been done a lot, you know, or at least something similar to it has been done a lot throughout the years. So you got to make it good, and you can't just put them together, because when you do that and you have no like real future written out, it fizzles every time. And that's what I'm worried about. All right, so we caught up the supers there. Let me finish up on the Raw, finish up on the Raw results where we left off. I got the Iconics and all of that. Okay, so after that Iconics and Liv Morgan and Ruby Riott match, we go backstage. This is when I thought Raw was taking a turn for the stupid, because the way they were making the sound was just so silly. It's so dumb. So anyway, Charlie is back there, and she's standing by all these production crates. You know, those big-ass crates that they use to set up the shows that we see at every show backstage. she's standing by one of them that's just like tipped over, and there's all this shit. Like there's like lights and brackets for cameras and everything. Just a bunch of metal shit like on the floor. One crate, that's it. And she's like, so, the reports earlier that, there was an accident back here. Nobody was hurt. But I'm like, it was just a box. Even if somebody were to be standing in front of that, they wouldn't have gotten like seriously injured. Something would have fallen and hurt your ankle and be like, ow, that hurt. You just walk it off. So it's like, she's like, nobody was hurt, or nobody was injured, thankfully. And they're doing an investigation, trying to get to the bottom of like who tipped over the box. And I'm like, who fucking cares who tipped over the box? I remember like a couple years ago, they did the thing with Roman Reigns where they tipped over the huge scaffolding with all the shit on it and it fell on him or whatever. This is like one crate, and they like got to get to the bottom of like who tipped over the box. I found that to be amusing because I'm like, yeah, what kind of sick son of a bitch, what kind of violent sociopath would be so crazy that he would just tip over a box? You must get to the bottom of this. You can't just go around tipping over boxes and expect there not to be consequences. That's some serious shit we're talking about here. So that was when I was like, okay, what the F? So now we've got the production stuff, the lights being messed with, and now somebody's tipping over boxes. The plot thickens, right? We then move on to a Drew McIntyre promo. He's pissed about last week because Randy Orton came out and RKO'd him and posed with the belt and all that stuff. He talks a little bit about his past. He owns up to his firing. He's been doing that just about every promo. No, 10 years ago I was fired and all this and shit and whatever. So he owns it, and he goes on to talk about Randy Orton's career. And he goes, speaking about being fired, Randy Orton should have been fired way before me. And he's right, because technically, I believe Randy Orton has 4 strikes. Isn't that right? Like if you really add up his wellness policy violations, and then there's that rule that after the 3rd one, you're automatically terminated. But for some reason, he wasn't. And then there was talks of maybe internally there was a way for someone to work off a strike. So based on WWE's internal, rules, he should have been let go, but he wasn't. And he did have some behavior problems. And Drew even brought up the shitting in the bag thing, which, again, I was like, didn't expect to see that tonight on Monday Night Raw. That's for sure. Or hear that tonight. And and Randy Orton then comes out to the stage. He's got Ric Flair with him. I don't know why Flair is there. There's no purpose for Flair to be there. He doesn't need to be backing up Randy Orton at all. It doesn't make sense that Randy Orton is even with Ric Flair. Randy Orton should be punting Ric Flair or turn on Ric Flair or something. The fact that they're together, to me, is just having Flair there for the sake of being there. And this storyline, he adds 0 to it. He's Ric Flair. He's a legend, greatest of all time, but still completely unnecessary in this particular faction. It's not like he's always been the manager of Randy Orton all this time. Randy Orton's had years and years of feuds and title reigns and title victories and losses that have had nothing to do with Ric Flair. So now all of a sudden he's there. He reminds me of like a broke retail worker that's just trying to get all the hours he can get. It's almost like he's being paid by appearance or paid by the hour, where he's just like asking WWE, can I work? Can I pick up a shift? Can I get more money? Like, what's his deal? I don't think he should be out there, and I don't think he's needed. But nonetheless, he's there with Orton. And Orton, to his credit, I kind of liked his response, because I thought it in my head right before he said it, when Drew was talking about how Randy Orton should have been fired. And I was like, well, you can't really fire Randy Orton because he's valuable as hell. And that's exactly what Orton said. He goes, yeah, of course. I admit it. I should have been fired. I did a lot of messed up stuff, but they didn't fire me. You want to know why? Because I'm important. I'm valuable. They can't live without me type of shit. I'm going to have to kill someone to get fired. They're not firing me. I'm untouchable because I'm a star and you're a joke kind of thing. So I almost liked his little retort there. That was very good. And McIntyre went on to say, he goes, I was watching The Last Ride on the WWE Network, and you talked about The Undertaker and the way he really went to bat for you, the way he really elevated you, and the way he really passed on knowledge that he had learned to you. He goes, you've never done that, Randy. When have you ever, helped out another talent? You're selfish and all that kind of stuff, which isn't entirely true, but it's not entirely false either. But Randy Orton has had some factions before. He has tried to help some younger talent. He had the legacy. He's done a few other things here and there with with some of the underneath talent on the roster, even going as far as exchanging with them on social media and Twitter. Hell, he put over the Talkin' Shopomania show this past weekend on Saturday, which I did not see, but apparently it was weirder than this Monday Night Raw. Maybe this was Raw's answer to that. Because the only thing I heard about that show at all is it was just purposely crazy and stupid. And maybe that's what WWE was going for here. I don't know. But this little exchange was good. Drew blames himself for getting RKO'd. I know that about you. I should have seen it coming. That's on me. But I promise you at SummerSlam, I'll kick your head off into the fifth row and I'll retain my title. And that was that. So the world title feud going into SummerSlam, which up until today was the most interesting thing on Raw, because Drew and Randy Orton, I think, is going to make for a really fun title match. But this was almost like secondary. This was something that wasn't even that important on the show tonight compared to everything else they had there. So we got that out of the way. More weirdness followed after that promo. We get Nia Jax out to the ring. Last week she was back. She beat the shit out of Pat Buck, who I've never even heard of before, some NXT guy or WWE official or something. She beat the crap out of him. She's in the ring now, cutting a promo with him. She's been ordered to apologize to him, and she doesn't do that. She's a complete bitch on the mic, talks a bunch of smack, and winds up challenging him, say, hey, if you're half as tough as you think you are or whatever, why don't you face me in a match, me versus you, and then after the match, then I'll apologize to you. And he's like, no way, dude. I came out here. The only reason I'm here is because I was supposed to get an apology. And then she just proceeds to beat the shit out of him. So she kills him, whips his ass and everything. Oh, I think prior to that, though, he says that she's suspended without pay. That's what it was. So he goes, as a WWE official, you are suspended indefinitely without pay. Then she kills him. So I don't even know who Pat Buck was, much less that he's a WWE official. So he apparently has the authority to issue a suspension and issue a suspension with no pay. Now, speaking of authority, I know none of us missed the authority, but I do think an authority figure is kind of needed on the show right now. I mean, because it's fine to not have one for a little while, but an authority figure helps tie things together sometimes. And as long as it doesn't turn into the only thing you see on the show, like that authority faction with Stephanie and Triple H and Staples manager Kane and Mercury and Seth and all that stuff, that got so old and was just so ridiculous. We don't need that or anything, but you should have a GM, not Shane McMahon, because when he's the GM, he makes the whole show about himself, but just somebody like a Regal. You know, they already tried Foley and Angle and guys like that, you know, and don't just stick somebody in that situation. Stick somebody in that situation that you at least think could hold that position on TV as a character for at least a couple of years, so you're not constantly changing your GM storylines every 3 fucking weeks. So I think, you know, having like an authority figure right now would really be beneficial to the show, especially with some of the crazy stuff that's going on. But, you know, for the time being, I think we're going to have to just live with a random guy like Pat Buck or Stephanie showing up via Zoom on the Tron to announce a match or something. But based on all the chaos that's going on right now, I think a GM would be helpful. And a GM would be good. A GM like Bischoff would be good. But he's gone, so we can't do that. Before we wrap up the Raw results, let me cruise over here because I know I got Super Chats rolling in. I don't want to fall too behind. Zane, I appreciate another $10, dude. Thank you so much. With the pay-per-view build up between Royal Rumble and WrestleMania being the best months in WWE, can the same be said for the build-ups leading to SummerSlam? Sometimes. There's been some years where I thought the summer was so fun, but there's been others where I thought not so much. There's been times where I thought SummerSlam matches, main events anyway, were built nicely, and they took a lot of time to kind of simmer and build, like 2011 and stuff. But, you know, there's other years where it just gets thrown together more. But yeah, when they say it's the second biggest pay-per-view of the year, some people consider the Rumble to be the second biggest, but a lot of times the Rumble kicks off storylines more than it concludes them, because you have 2 Rumble matches and 2 winners that go into WrestleMania. SummerSlam are just big main events, and we've had some pretty massive ones throughout the years. So I would say yes, I pretty much agree with that $10 Super Chat assessment. Thanks again, Zane. Divine Ricks, appreciate the $5. Hey, Greg, would you put Eddie Guerrero in your all-time top 10? I would want to. I'd have to really give that some thought. He's not currently in my top 10. I did a top 10 video a few years back. It's got like 500,000 views on it. A whole lot of dislikes for some reason, but he is not in my top 10. Just because I just got too many guys I like. You know, it's the it's the Brocks and the Jerichos and the Bretts and the Shawns and the Perfects and the Angles and stuff. But Eddie deserves to be there. I don't know, and Undertaker and guys like that, Rock, Austin. So yeah, maybe one day I'll do a new top 10 or a revisited top 10, and I'll try to squeeze Eddie in if I can. So much as I love Eddie, though, if he's on my top 10, he's probably going to be 10, just because I have so many guys that I just loved as much, if not more so, than him. But Eddie's the man, and I'm sure there are plenty of fans, especially the generation after mine, that will have him not only in their top 10, but probably in their top 5. So just a difference in generation, I think, mostly there. But Eddie was awesome. We all miss him. We all love him. What do we have next? Oh, yeah, more weirdness. So now we got the 24/7 title on the line. We had, did I miss this somewhere? Backstage earlier on when the Hurt Business was being interviewed. This might have been when Apollo accepted his challenge. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It was when Charlie was talking about the cases flopped over. That's what it was. So the box was tipped over. He's like, who did it or whatever. The Hurt Business showed up. MVP's pissed. He goes, this is what you're talking about? You're reporting about boxes being turned over. How about me being screwed out of my United States title because of the production problems and it's an unsafe working environment? There's that phrase again. And that's when she tells him that Apollo has accepted his challenge for SummerSlam, and that's a go. And right after that, Shelton Benjamin shows up, and he's all worried. He's pissed. He goes, somebody stole my belt. Somebody stole it. Apparently, that was R-Truth, and now we have a match in the ring, triple threat, an actual match with a referee and a bell and all that stuff for the title. And apparently, during 24/7 matches, the 24/7 rules are abandoned during the match, which doesn't really make it a 24/7 title, but that's the rule. And Tozawa won the title. So Truth, I think, stole it, came to the ring with it. Shelton Benjamin was the actual champion, but Tozawa wound up winning the belt. Ninjas were out there. Lashley was out there. MVP was out there. All sorts of stuff going on. Tozawa hit R-Truth with that senton top rope finisher thing that he has, wins the title, and scurries away. So Tozawa now, I think, is a 3-time 24/7 champion. So him and the Ninjas are in possession once again of the green clock. Good for them. And then right after that, we've been hearing, we know Shane McMahon's going to be on the show, but we have no idea in what capacity. They've teased nothing in terms of what Shane's going to do and what his role is going to be, other than what we heard on the interwebs prior to the show. And then all of a sudden, boom, you cut right to him. He's in that little backstage storage room that we've seen on a lot of, we see a lot of backstage post-match interviews back there on all the shows. He's back there with that ring. The ropes are off the ring. There's 2 guys fighting in the ring behind him. And he's got this like graphic underneath him that says Raw Underground. He's like, welcome to Raw Underground. And it debuts tonight at 10 p.m. on the East Coast, which is going to be the top of the second hour there. So the way they made that look at first, it reminded me, I thought it was going to be like a Raw and Warzone type of thing that they used to do back in the Attitude Era. And I was like, okay, so maybe because the first hour of Raw would be Raw, and then the second hour would be Warzone, they would actually change the names of them, and it would even list that way in the TV guide and stuff as 2 separate shows, even though they were combined together as one. So I was kind of thinking that the third hour there was going to be called Raw Underground. And I'm like, ooh, that's weird. Is it all going to take place back there? But that's not really what we saw. It's basically just this like Fight Club type of thing. And there were rumors that Shane was going to be bringing back some type of Brawl for All type of concept. This is a lot better than Brawl for All because it's worked and they're not trying to make it a shoot at all. And that's clear. And it's basically like this underground gritty type of Fight Club. But I don't know. Some people didn't like it. We're going to talk about it in a minute because that's all we got here. We just got the tease. This was around the bottom of the hour, so we had about 30 minutes until this was going to happen. So Shane just advertises it. I went ahead and pulled that picture, used it as my thumbnail here. I'm like, perfect, because that looks like what the focal point of the show is going to be. And then after that, we go to commercial. We come back, and we get a Dominik interview backstage. I think he's with Chuck. I forget. And they talk about Rey Mysterio. Oh, no, he's with the other one. He's with Misty Carmichael. So they talk about Rey Mysterio, that he's still recovering. I love it when the announcers say the name of whatever it's called when your eye comes out, the long-ass word. You can tell they had to practice it so many times. I can't even say it. I didn't even write it down. So they talk about Rey still recovering from that. And she's like, why are you here, targeting Seth? He's like, I have to. It's my duty as a son and all that stuff. You have to understand why I'm doing what I have to do. I can't let this man just rip my daddy's eyeball out and think he can walk away from it. And I like that about Dominik. He is a badass kid. I'm telling you, he does not give a shit who he goes after. This guy has attacked Brock Lesnar before. I mean, he don't care. I really like Dominik because his presentation is so much different than wrestlers' sons or wrestlers' families. Every time family members are brought in, they're portrayed as weak. They're portrayed as needing protection, can't handle themselves. And Dominik is still inexperienced. He's probably going to get killed in this match, but he doesn't come across as weak and helpless and pathetic. You know, Seth should be careful around him because he could get his ass whipped if he's not careful. So Dominik goes on then to actually challenge Seth Rollins to a match at SummerSlam, which is, again, kind of a shock because I thought it would be a tag or something like that. I don't know. So we might actually get a one-on-one match between Seth Rollins and Dominik at SummerSlam, which you would have to think has got to lead to some sort of a big swerve or storyline or something. And if Rey Mysterio is working without a contract, he's going to have to appear at SummerSlam. He's going to have to, unless he stays home and lets Dominik get murdered by the Messiah. No way. So the seeds were planted for that match. Next up, we get Sasha Banks and Shayna Baszler. This is the match that was set up earlier when Shayna decked her. And this was going to be good because I was looking forward to this on paper, but I knew 1,000,000% there was not going to be a finish here. This could be a pay-per-view match. Have these girls worked before? I can't remember Shayna and Sasha in the ring prior to this. I'm sure they have been. I just don't remember. And I didn't even think the match would really start. Luckily, they did go a few minutes. Both ladies got some offense in, and they let them go maybe 3, maybe 4 minutes. Eventually, Asuka shows up out of nowhere. She attacks Bayley, goes after her, starts ripping her apart, and then the referee calls for the bell. So I'm assuming Shayna Baszler got DQ'd here, but I'm not even sure. It might have been a double DQ. Not sure what the official word was. Doesn't matter. Ref calls for the bell. We go to commercial. We come back. I think it's Asuka is in the ring with Charlie, who is out there now to interview her. She's pissed off, and she's demanding a rematch at SummerSlam. Shayna Baszler is still out there. She gets in the ring, so it's cool to see them kind of face off. I've been talking about the two of them for a while on the podcast here. She gets in the ring, and she's like, look, I'm not even mad at you. I don't want to fight you, not today. I just want to let you know I'm rooting for you hard at SummerSlam, because if you win that title, I want you to give me a shot. I want to be the one to take it off of you. And that's the match I thought we were going to get at SummerSlam. I thought it was going to be Shayna and Asuka. That's why I was so convinced that Asuka was going to retain the title last week. But maybe since the Sasha and Bayley plans have been changing so much and they've been getting over even more than WWE expected them to, and had there not been a pandemic, they would have already broken these ladies up, right? Because SummerSlam was supposed to be in Boston. That would be a perfect spot for Sasha, who's been second fiddle to Bayley, parading around with the title for so many months, and then beats her for it and a whole deal. That's probably what they were going to do. But because of that, they've kind of changed the direction and let Sasha and Bayley just let the two of them run and be basically the face of the company right now, which is not a stretch. They kind of are. They're doing great work and they're hilarious together. So I thought that was kind of going to be the direction there. Now it looks like we're gearing up for Asuka and Sasha again. And I guess Bayley will have a whole new opponent. I had speculated last week that maybe Stephanie McMahon just makes Sasha face everybody, since Sasha's been throwing little insults Stephanie's way. And Stephanie's like, all right, now you got to face Shayna and Asuka and Nia Jax. But look, they've written Nia Jax off with a suspension. And now they've got Shayna kind of even backing off, saying, hey, fine, you go face Sasha at SummerSlam, but I want a shot if you win the title kind of thing. So we might actually now get one-on-one Sasha and Asuka again, which will be, the third time we've seen it? So do they add something? Do we get a stip, a cage, something? Could be on the beach, could be on the boat. They could add something fun for this match in upcoming weeks. So we'll keep on our eye on that, but it should be fun. Sasha and Bayley come back after that, after Asuka issues the challenge. They're on the ramp, and they do the same thing that they've both done to each other about 5 times each, and every time they look surprised, like you got this little subtle tension that still exists there that WWE's letting you know isn't going anywhere. And Sasha's like, fine, Asuka, you want a shot at my title? No big deal. All you got to do is beat a great champion and one of the 4 horsewomen and all this shit, and and then hits her with the Bayley, and then Bayley's shocked that she meant her, and she's like, oh, okay, I got to face her. Okay, that's fine. It would have been cool if you talked to me about that first, type of thing, which is just something they continuously do with these two. So that's happening again. We got Bayley and Asuka next week. right? Next week, if Asuka wins, she gets the match at SummerSlam. That's the deal there. Then, after that, it's now the top of the hour. We get our first look at Raw Underground. Okay, here we go. So we've got that ring that's in that back room, that garage or that warehouse that we've seen on lots of Raws, lots of SmackDowns, lots of NXTs. I know I've seen a lot of I've seen a lot of Alexa and Nikki Cross segments back there where they're leaning up against the ring talking to each other. So we've seen that background before. Now they've got the ropes pulled off. There's music playing, and then set up in the corner, there's a little stage with like 3 dancers. It's like some ECW 2007 shit. I thought one of them was Kelly Kelly. These like exotic dancers, providing the TNA segment of the or vibe of the segment here. So you got no ropes on the ring, guys whipping each other's asses in the ring. You got like strippers dancing and gyrating on the stage there, and you got this weird ass background music playing in the background. You got Shane McMahon doing his own commentary on the mic, walking around the ring. And again, they're presenting this as some sort of like underground gritty Fight Club type of thing. The only problem with this is once they got into the action here, you see 2 guys fighting, and there's no real rules here. It's like it just keeps going. Once one guy wins one of the fights, then somebody else can just jump in and take him on. It's just like this never-ending fight. Like the way they were trying to play it off is the entire time that we were watching matches on TV or watching commercials, these fights were going on the whole time nonstop, I think is what they were trying to make us think here. So Shane McMahon is calling all this action. I don't remember who was fighting first. It became apparent that this might have been used to really showcase and get over. They were calling him, is it Dabba-Kato or Dabba-Kato? I think it's Dabba-Kato or something like that. His name is Babatunde. He appeared in one of those in the Greatest Royal Rumble in Saudi Arabia for a short time there. And he's been training in NXT all this time. He gets in the ring. He's a monster of a man. He just starts kicking the shit out of a whole bunch of guys, and Shane's going nuts on the microphone. So it kind of looked like it was a way to introduce him, but by the time the show wrapped up, it looked like they're probably going to go further with this Raw Underground thing. Now, there's a lot of criticisms right off the bat because, number one, it's good that it's not a shoot, of course. This absolutely has to be worked. They don't ever want to try to go back to that Brawl for All shit again. So they made the right decision there, but like we've seen with so many of the cinematic matches and the different type of the matches WWE's been trying to do during the pandemic, it's really crazy overly edited. We had a million different camera cuts, and they were doing that shaky camera thing again that gives you a seizure or makes you dizzy, where they're just shaking the camera all over the place, constantly cutting away from stuff, cutting back to it. And I'm like, if you're going to do all that, name it something else, because when you're calling it an underground type of thing, underground needs to be like, really low budget, really low tech, just one guy with like an iPhone 5, recording the action. You don't need $3 million worth of camera equipment and lighting, because even though it was dimly lit, it was still lit, and they still created that vibe. If they really wanted to make it look underground and they really wanted to make it look gritty, you got to do more than that. Sticking it in a garage with a bunch of storage shelves behind you is one thing, but you still produced it like it's a huge budget movie, mega blockbuster budget movie or something like that. So they did not achieve the underground vibe they were going for. It didn't feel underground at all. It was in the back fucking room that is literally probably 50 feet from the announce desk. This was literally going on right next to them because the PC's not that big. So it's right there. It's not even like it's some weird location. If they tried to do that, and they might have found a place to film all this off-site, maybe half an hour away in some barn somewhere in the backyard of some dude's house, that would have felt a little bit more underground. They still would have put 67 cameras there and done their stupid editing shit, but at least it would have felt a little more like it's really like an underground type of thing, separate from what WWE is doing, because all of the announcers were acting surprised when they cut back to that and they saw it for the first time. I'm like, well, you assholes, it's right there. You would have seen it when you were walking to the ring because it's right there. So you're acting like this is the first time you've seen this shit all day. You've been there all day. You haven't noticed Shane McMahon's back there running a Fight Club? You somehow missed that. So it just didn't, I don't think it came off the way they at least were intending. I was even speculating in my own mind if maybe it was a joke. I thought it was just a rib on the fans or something, but no, it looked like they were serious. So again, if this is something they want to take seriously and keep doing, then I think they need to make some adjustments to it. And one of those adjustments is if they want to call it underground, then it needs to be fucking underground. 1 camera angle. 1. Okay, maybe 2. It's 2020, whatever. Maybe 2, but none of that shaky shit, none of those crazy cuts. It doesn't look any more real when you're shaking and throwing the camera over, 5 feet in every direction every 5 seconds. So just let the dudes fight and let them just try to make it look as real as possible. Maybe do a wide shot so it's not so exposed. But if you want it to be underground, you need to do better than that. This was a miserable failure in terms of making it look gritty and low budget. And, wasn't that great. I mean, Lucha Underground had a fair amount of production to it, but it felt more underground than this. I like the, the big old dusty, dirty windows up at the top and stuff. So I think the two biggest problems with Raw Underground, number one is the location. It should not just be in the back room of the PC. This should be off-site. If they found the boneyard and they found a swamp, why can't they find a barn to put this shit in? Just open the Yellow Pages or Google some shit, man. Call around. Find a place. Yellow Pages. Listen to my old ass. And the next thing they needed to do is eliminate the 48,000 cameras and the camera cuts and the lighting and everything. Just make it look dirty and dark and gritty if that's what you're going for, because you can't say you want it to be that and then you give us the exact opposite thing. So that was a little silly to me, but otherwise, I'm going to reserve my judgment for this. We have more to talk about with Raw Underground before we wrap up here, but I'm not going to condemn or praise this yet. Let's see how it goes. Let's see what happens next week. Let's get a couple of weeks into this, and if it continues to suck the way it probably will, then we'll go ahead and write it off. But let's wait, because you can also improve on things. Remember when the COVID first started and the fans were like, dudes, you guys should put the hard cam on the ramp. They did. So if enough people are saying, hey, this doesn't look underground, maybe they'll make changes to make it underground. And as we saw as the show closed here, which we'll talk about in a minute with the Hurt Business kind of taking over, maybe MVP will make those adjustments to the Raw Underground that need to be made. And tell Shane to get his head out of his ass. I don't know. But I definitely think they could have found a better location than the back room. Kind of dumb. All right, before we move on to the rest of Raw, let me just make sure everything's cool over here. Pretty decent audience. Did I get everybody? Zane, I got you. Divine. All right, I'm not behind on any of the super chats. That's awesome. What do we have next on Raw? We had a couple of the tag team match at SummerSlam. We had 2 singles matches and a really interesting angle that they did here. So as we know, Garza and Andrade won the right to challenge the Street Profits at SummerSlam for the titles. So we get a couple of one-on-ones, which is not uncommon. First match is going to be Angel Garza taking on Angelo Dawkins, and then after that, we're going to have Montez Ford taking on Andrade. Now, prior to the match, they've got some chick from The Bachelor. I didn't catch her name, little blonde girl. She's backstage. Garza, who I think just got married, gave her flowers, and, you will go watch my match, baby, or whatever the fuck he said to her. So they got this Bachelor chick. I've never seen 10 seconds of The Bachelor, ever. Most I've ever seen is a commercial. So never heard of her, don't know who she is, don't care about her, don't know why she's there. So he gives her a little rose or whatever. He goes out to the ring for his match, and he's got to take on Dawkins first. Now, during the match, you had Andrade backing up Garza and Montez backing up Dawkins. And during the match, Montez just kind of passes out on the outside of the ring, kind of falls down. Dawkins sees this. He, goes and leans through the ropes. It's like, dude, are you all right? And that's when he's caught by Garza, who's able to hit him with something and pin him, and he wins. So Dawkins loses because he was too busy checking up on his friend. And he kind of goes over to check on him. They cut to commercial. He's like, man, you got to get it together. Are you okay? You got to have a match with Andrade next. They go to commercial. They come back, and Montez appears to be all right. He's checked out by the medical staff, and they say he's good to go. So he starts having the match with Andrade. And he goes to do his Ultimate Warrior rope shake thing, and then he just kind of collapses. He collapses just straight down on the mat. And the very first thing I thought of was Shawn Michaels in 1995, right after the Survivor Series, right after the one Marine beat him up. I know he says 9, but it was 1. Right after the one Marine beat him up and he was put in the hospital, he suffered a concussion or whatever. So they played up on that, had the match on Raw the next night against Owen Hart. Owen hit him with the Enziguri, and he just collapses in the ring. Vince put his headset down, kind of gets in the ring. It's all somber, and the show kind of just goes off the air like that, or fades to black or whatever. And I believe they come back with the oxygen mask on them and all of that. So they try to really play that off well. This, of course, is an angle here. Montez did a pretty good job of selling it because he's got really intense eyes. You can see that when he's shaking the ropes, and he kind of had this glazed look. I think they were even rolling in the back of his head a little bit, so that was a pretty good selling job by him. But you didn't know where they were going there. I'm like, holy shit, has he got a brain tumor or something? Or are they going to try to go in some really bad direction here? I was really hoping they weren't. I wasn't thinking that it was tied in to all the chaos that this mystery faction has been playing into. So they tend to him. I think it goes to commercial again. And that's when we come back and we get another Raw Underground segment. This time, Shane McMahon is showcasing Eric from the Viking Raiders. So now the Viking Raiders are there, and he's beating the shit out of somebody, and that's the end of that. We then get a backstage interview with Zelina and Andrade and Garza, and they're speculating on Montez Ford. Dawkins comes in to screen. They're outside Montez Ford's locker room, by the way. Dawkins comes in, and he goes, hey, the doctors tell me that he was poisoned. And, of course, he's blaming Zelina and Andrade and Garza. Bianca Belair then comes out of Montez Ford's dressing room, and she's pissed, and she's blaming the three of them too. So this is kind of good because you can tell as a fan, even though they're heels, they didn't do it. This is the faction. This is the evil faction that did it. So they're blaming, Zelina's crew or whatever, and they're all mad. Right after that, we get this. I think it's Charlie that tells us that oh my gosh, we've got some security footage to show you. I thought it was going to be like GTV or the Hacker or something like that would wind up revealing something, but they go to this terribly staged-looking security footage. They've got this big production electrical box thing outside, and all these guys in their black garb and their ninja outfits, and they got like these Molotov cocktails, and they just toss it right at the big box or whatever, and explodes and lights on fire, and they're all saying, yeah, and they're screaming and they're cheering and everything, and it's just really weird. So you can tell that they're kind of the ones behind all of this nonsense. Now, after that, we cut back again to MVP and Lashley and Shelton, who are all leaving. They're all dressed in their very snazzy suits. And they've had a rough night because MVP lost the United States title that he never really held, and Shelton Benjamin lost the 24/7 title. So they're all pissed off, and they blame Raw Underground for this. So again, I like the fact that they're doing two major things at once, and they're making you wonder if they're intertwined or not. Now, they are convinced, the Hurt Business is convinced that it's not a coincidence that this new Underground segment debuts on the same night that all this shit is going on. Like the lights are being messed with, and people are setting shit on fire, and guys are getting poisoned and stuff. So they are blaming the Raw Underground thing, and they said that they're going to go there. They're going to go to Raw Underground, and they're going to straighten some shit out, which they don't have to go far. They got to go about 20 feet. So that's going to be their motivation for the rest of the night. Now we kind of get the main event segment in the last two segments of the show. It's going to be a Seth Rollins promo. He's backstage talking to Buddy Murphy first. They're discussing the potential match with Dominik at SummerSlam, and Murphy's like, are you sure you want to do this? And yada, yada. So they wind up going out to the ring, and that's when Seth Rollins gets in the face of Tom Phillips. He just targets him right away, and he says, do you know why I'm mad at you? And it's because last week when Dominik was wearing me out with the kendo stick, you were cheering for him, and, you have a voice, and these minions that listen to you are going to take that, and you're using this as a bias and all this crap. He's just mad at Tom Phillips, and the whole time this is happening, I'm saying in my head, I'm like, Joe looks so awkward sitting there. Is he going to allow Seth Rollins to put his hands on Tom Phillips? If he does, he's going to be an asshole, and a lot of people like Samoa. So I'm thinking, there's no way Samoa Joe can allow this to happen. There's just no way. And sure enough, after Seth basically says he's going to teach Tom Phillips a lesson, that's when Samoa Joe stands up. He goes, no, you're not. I'm not going to let you come here and talk shit to my broadcast partner like that. And he takes off his jacket and gets in the ring. I'm like, holy shit, we're going to get Samoa Joe versus Seth Rollins. They go to commercial, they come back, and that's when Dominik winds up attacking. So I think right before Joe and Seth are really about to get into it, Dominik shows up, attacks Seth Rollins, beats the shit out of him. Seth is mad. He gets on the mic and accepts the challenge for SummerSlam, and that was that. So it kind of looks like they're teasing Joe. I couldn't tell if Joe was back or if he was just trying to do the right thing there. And like I said, with all these rehashes tonight, we saw, a lot of people argue that Raw Underground is kind of a version of the Brawl for All. They rehashed Montez passing out just like Shawn passed out in 95. And now we're getting a rehash of Jerry Lawler protecting Jim Ross from Taz 20 years ago in 2000 when they had their little beef. And maybe a couple of other examples, too, of WWE really kind of looking to the past to create some of these angles tonight. It was interesting. So I liked all of that, but after it was all over, there was still 5 minutes left in the show. So we got to cut back again to Raw Underground one final time. Dolph Ziggler is in there. Now, Dolph Ziggler, it's not like he's a weakling. I mean, he might dress like a complete bag of dicks, but he's tough. He's a former collegiate wrestler. He's got a good record, and he knows how to, wrestle and scrap a little bit, and he's scrappy. Dolph is scrappy. So Shane's putting him over. Dolph's in the ring beating the shit out of some guy, and that's when the Hurt Business arrives. They finally get there. It took them a long time to walk that 20 feet. They finally get in there. I couldn't tell, it didn't look like they were threatening Shane. Shane was kind of into it. Basically, Shane's attitude, from what I could tell anyway, is that anything goes in this. Whatever you guys want to do, just do it. And I'm like, well, can we bring weapons? At what point are guys just going to bring a knife to this thing? Or a switchblade? Or is this going to turn into blood sport? They're going to wrap their hands in gauze and glue and then dip it into broken glass. I mean, what could we see here? So the Hurt Business then gets in the ring, and Lashley, of course, we know his credentials. He just gets in there and starts killing people. He murders a dude. And then we get Shelton Benjamin in the ring, another guy that I wouldn't want to fight. And Dio Madden, right? Isn't that Dio Madden? Big guy with the long hair. He gets in the ring, kind of forgot all about him. He used to be an announcer on Raw. And he's just a big, impressive-looking dude, and I was happy that when he left the announce booth that he said he wanted to give another stab to wrestling, but I haven't really heard any updates on the guy. He starts mixing up with Shelton Benjamin again a little bit. He winds up getting killed. The Hurt Business then hops outside the ring and just starts beating up everybody around the ring there and just starts kicking the shit out of everybody. Shane McMahon seems perfectly okay with this. Even when MVP is on the mic saying the Hurt Business is taking over Raw Underground, this is our show now. We're going to take over. Shane is not resistant. So that's all really strange. I don't know. You'd think Shane would fight for what he has made or what he's brought to WWE Raw, and he wouldn't just let somebody walk right up to him and take it away from him and then talk him up and praise him as the show goes off the air. That seems odd. So the fact that Shane didn't seem too shaken up by that, again, gets you wondering, why is that? And when you combine that with the faction, I'm wondering if maybe Shane is either Shane or Owens. Well, maybe not Kevin Owens. By the way, earlier on, Kevin Owens, when he had that little confrontation with Ric Flair backstage, he has agreed to meet Orton in the ring next week. I think the two of them are going to have some sort of a confrontation. I can't remember if it was a match or just a segment. That's going to be taking place next week, so maybe not Kevin Owens, but I'm wondering if Shane McMahon is possibly using this Raw Underground thing as as a front for what he's really doing. Get all the fans thinking that this is his baby while he will secretly be the mastermind behind this faction that's wreaking havoc everywhere, because maybe he's got a bone to pick. Maybe he's got some issue. That there's also a possibility here that this whole entire thing could turn into another war with the McMahons. Because we've been wondering one day if we're going to get some sort of a power struggle on TV between Shane and Triple H. We've had some teases of that throughout the years. I don't know if the fans really would want that right now, but they could go that far with it. This could eventually evolve into that, depending on what the intentions here are. But I'm kind of wondering if maybe Shane is behind the chaos, but he's pretending he's just using the Raw Underground as a smokescreen or a front or a red herring or whatever you want to call it, to kind of throw off the audience and then secretly be the higher power or whatever behind the group of wackos that's running so much havoc on WWE. But if it's up to me, I like the idea of taking the Ricochets and the Aleister Blacks and the 100 other guys that you can probably think of and putting them into a faction to where they're just going to start, really doing some serious damage. They just have to be careful that it's different than the other 1,000 times they've done this type of angle. So we'll see. Like I said at the beginning here, it keeps you guessing, and you really have no idea what they're going to do. You can really only speculate at this point. Now, I think today they did record 2 shows. I think there was 2 sets of tapings, so they've already done next week's show. So we should maybe hear some potential spoilers this week about maybe not exact spoilers, but maybe the direction some of these angles are designed to go in. You know, I'm hoping we at least get that. Either way, it's if nothing else, it's interesting. That's for sure. And that's all I got from my Raw notes. So now we can listen to you guys, hear what you guys have to say about this and what the hell you make of this nonsense and what you think we're going to see. Let me give my little page a refresh here so I can read my comments. If you guys can do me a favor and smash that thumbs up, I'd really, really appreciate it. A couple hundred people in here in the chat, so that's not horrible. What's up, Jan Michael Cobb? Good to see you. Thank you for that. I'm a gangster. All right. That's awesome. Good to see you, Adam, as well. Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's interesting, Ryan Roder. That was 2005. Yeah, that's right. The ladder match. So Dominik, God, who would have thought? I remember watching that SummerSlam and not liking that match. That was when I remember around that time thinking that WWE was getting a little bit silly with their storylines because that one didn't hold any water. Like, you didn't believe it. You can't put custody of a kid up for grabs in a ladder match. That's not the way it works. You know, there's just no way. Even if you had parents that were like battling for custody for kids and they both agreed to put the kids on the line in a ladder match, the judge wouldn't let that happen. So it was just, to me, it was just like weird. I'm like, no, that's fucking dumb. And just to see how little and young that kid was, and to think, watching it that night, that 15 years later, you know, this dude would be a pretty scary looking kid on his way to a pretty big SummerSlam match against one of WWE's top stars, I would have said you were crazy. And it was kind of interesting, if you noticed on it at the end of Raw, to see, you know, Samoa Joe kind of out there with Dominik, because when Joe was feuding with Ray, I wanted Dominik to turn heel so bad, because Dominik is much different than his dad. That's one thing that Dominik has going for him, is that he doesn't necessarily have to worry about filling his dad's shoes to the degree that some other wrestlers did, the way like a Greg Gagne did, or a Mike Graham did, or a Dustin Rhodes did. You know, even though Dustin made his way excellently and really was able to break off. That's rare. You know, that's rare. Randy Orton did the same thing with Cowboy Bob, even though they were both like big guys. But Ray and Dominik are so different, and they're going to have a different style. Dominik's going to be totally athletic, but he ain't going to be able to do what Ray did. And I always thought Dominik looked more like Samoa Joe or Walter, you know, or a guy like that, just a big ass-kicking machine. One of those guys I could see mentoring him. So I think with Dominik, you know, that fear of, oh, I'm never going to live up to my dad's legacy. Well, you're probably not, because Rey Mysterio is, you know, going to go down as one of the best ever. It's almost impossible, but I think he might be at a better position than some guys' kids, just based on his size and everything. So it was kind of cool to see him out there, you know, kind of fighting on the same side a little bit as Samoa Joe. When Samoa Joe get his hands on Dominik during that feud, I don't think he did, but I think we were expecting him to. I was kind of hoping Dominik would turn heel, but I also thought that Joe might choke him the fuck out. Can't remember if we saw that or not, but you know what? I'm okay with this match. I'm fine with it, because I like Dominik. Everything I've seen from the kid, I thought has been good. I really like his no nonsense and no fear attitude. I'm glad that he is not presented and portrayed as just a weakling, helpless family member that the big star always has to worry about the welfare of. You know, Dominik can take care of himself. And I think he's still going to get brutally injured at some point by the Messiah. And they might even do the crying father deal where Dominik is now injured. Maybe Dominik gets his eye poked out at SummerSlam, and, you know, then Ray literally murders Seth Rollins and goes to jail. I don't know. But all in all, you don't get that vibe of, you know, Dominik could be hurt real bad. He's a big kid and he's tough. So I like him. I don't know, man. Let me go up here and see if you guys had any other ideas about some of these angles and stuff. The box tipper, I know, man. Who knows who's going to be responsible for that, but it's clearly the faction. Oh, yeah, I saw something about the trademarks today. I didn't read them, though. Real American, they filed one for Hurt Business, which I can understand. And the other was Justice. Justice. Huh. J-U-S? T-U-S? Interesting. That could be the name of the faction. Like justice for us. We've been treated like shit. Or it could be a first name of somebody. Or a last name. I don't know. Justice. If that was the name of the faction, and that's the name of the faction, that's the way the faction was spelled, I'm trying to think of who would head that up. What it would mean. I don't know. Samoa as GM would be great. So would Kevin Owens. I like both of those ideas. Good to see Edwin. I'm doing great. Yeah, I'm still trying to think, Motor City, about Randy Orton. I don't know. I can't decide in my head if I think WWE is going to put the belt on him or not. I think he could. I think Orton and Drew could buy you some time almost, especially if you did a title swap between the two. And another thing we got to think about, and I don't think we've got any more news than what we've gotten the other day, but there is a pay-per-view or an event, a big event scheduled for August 30th, 1 week after SummerSlam. Right now it's titled Payback, and that's what they have it listed as. There's talk that it could be an all-women's pay-per-view, which could be, but I speculated on Saturday when we were talking about this that like maybe, you know, back in the day in 1991, they did the Tuesday in Texas deal because they had the schmaz at the Joe Louis Arena at Survivor Series, not the schmaz, but the Hogan losing the belt to Taker with help from Ric Flair at Survivor Series. Jack Tunney stepped in and says, it ain't going to go down like that. So, yeah, Taker, you're the champ, but you got to defend the title at the next possible date, which is this Tuesday in Texas. So I'm wondering if they do some sort of sketch-ass title switch or title change to where it's just so sketchy that a McMahon has no choice but to come out and say, all right, we can't let it go down like this. This coming Sunday, WWE Payback, and maybe it can be more than one. Maybe Sasha and Asuka goes down in a weird way, and maybe Drew and Orton goes down in a weird way, or maybe even Bray Wyatt and Strowman do something funky to where they're like, all right, we got to make a whole bunch of rematches. You guys fucked up SummerSlam. We got to do it all again. And maybe that's the reason for the pay-per-view 1 week after. So if it's anything like that, I'm thinking maybe Orton could win. Maybe Orton could win the title, and then McIntyre wins it right back from him. But I think Orton could win the title, and maybe McIntyre wins it back in September and October. And do we know, is there any word on what the October pay-per-view is going to be? Unless you go to another building or unless you go outside, you cannot do a Hell in a Cell match. It is not going to look right unless these guys are going to be hanging from the fucking ceiling, literally, in the Performance Center if you erect that monstrous cell. Now, I think you could get away with a Hell in a Cell match in the PC if you made it the way it was in 1997, where it was a solid 10 feet lower than it is now, and it doesn't look like a Mattel toy. If you scaled it down a bit, you could do it, in theory, I suppose. But I don't know what kind of pay-per-view you're going to do there in October, because I don't think Hell in the Cell is going to work. So if they did some belt trading, and then by the time we got to Survivor Series or the end of the year, Drew had the belt back and he still heads into WrestleMania to defend it, I suppose I'd be okay with that. I would like to see Drew continue to roll. I would like to see Drew continue to win. But if anybody's going to beat him, you know, you can't really say he's buried if a 14-time or 13-time world champion beats him. It's Randy Orton. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. I got to give it some more thought and decide what I really want out of those two guys. I think I said this on Saturday, too, that I really am probably all right either way, because I think Orton's doing some of the best work of his career right now. And if they want to put that title back around his waist, who am I to complain? But at the same time, I'm a big Drew McIntyre fan, and I was pushing for Drew prior to him winning the title, because I used to compare him all the time to Roman Reigns, because the fans are like, oh, Vince McMahon jacks off to Roman Reigns because he's so muscular and has long hair and he's good looking. And I'm like, Drew's better looking than Roman Reigns. I mean, don't get me wrong. Roman Reigns is sexy. I mean, he's sexy. There's not many of us that are that sexy. It's just a few. But Drew, I think, has got him beat. He's bigger. I think he might even be a little bit stronger. I think he's a little bit better looking. He's got that more rugged, like ravishing Rick Rude type of look to him than Roman Reigns does, who's got more of a, you know, Rude always looked more rugged, where guys like Roman and Shawn Michaels were prettier. You know what I mean? Do you follow me what I'm saying here? Like, I just think Drew looked more like what Vince wants than Roman did. But yet Roman was getting all the attention, the opportunity. I'm like, Drew is the total package, man. You know? He's got the look. He can talk. And most fans, based on Drew's track record and his body of work, would probably consider Drew an even better worker, because he's he's been a journeyman. He's a lot more well-traveled. He's been to a lot of promotions. You know, he's been he's wrestled internationally, and he's wrestled in Impact, and he's been in WWE a couple of different times during a couple of different eras, and he's just got everything. So I'm like, why is Drew not the man? I said this like 2 years ago, plenty of times on this very stream. I'm like, why is Drew not the man? Just look at him. And now he's the man. So I don't want to see him not be the man anymore right now. Let him continue to roll, build somebody. WWE, even according to some of the reports that out of Vince McMahon's own mouth, says we need to create new stars, then fine, create one. There's nothing wrong with these guys going out there and just beating people. It's okay. So I think that Drew should continue to do that as much as possible. But it's still going to be a good match. I think it's the best possible title match they could have done for SummerSlam based on what Orton has been doing lately. He's going to make a great opponent for Drew. I'm liking it so far, and I think it's going to go on to get a little bit more intense. We just had the promo this week. Next week, there will be physicality because we're going to get Randy Orton and Kevin Owens in the ring together. Again, I'm dumb. I didn't hear if they said it was going to be a match or not. If it is going to be a match, I think Drew does to Orton what Orton did to him, come out at the end of it and claymore him. Maybe even as the show goes off the air, if that does turn out to be the main event. But I'm kind of hoping we get some underground stuff next week in the main event, or at least some dudes blowing shit up. Maybe the evil faction blows something up. Something good. What do y'all want to see? Let me cruise up here. I know I got a super chat coming in. Oh, Zane again. Dude, appreciate your generosity tonight. You have been awesome. Thank you for 10 more. Time for another fun fact. 23 years ago today, I mentioned this earlier, 23 years ago today, Austin was nearly paralyzed by Owen Hart, and Foley jumps off the cage, Snuka style. Yep. I will never forget SummerSlam 1997. I even recently found a picture. There's no way I can find it and put it on the screen because I have no idea where it is. But I recently found a picture of my old apartment from 1997 or 1998. It's probably the second or third apartment I ever lived in. I had no money. I was so broke. But I had the SummerSlam 97 poster, and I don't even remember how I got it. I want to say my video store had it, and I asked for it. Like it was hanging up in the video rental place, and I got it, and I framed it, and I put it in my apartment because it's one of my favorite pay-per-view posters of all time. Oh, here it is. It is in here. Yeah, because I think I tweeted it within the last 6 months. I don't know if it'll show up on the screen or not. Look at this. Check this out. SummerSlam 1997. I've got some empty wine bottles there. For some reason, there is a Men in Black CD or DVD or something. I guess CD. I think those are CDs. There's a disposable camera that I used to take to shows. Red Wings thing. A little tiny 19-inch TV underneath that entertainment center. Doors poster and typical kid fucking apartment. I was, 19 when that photo was taken. But anyway, that show was 23 years ago today. August 3rd, 1997, great times. And that, of course, was the very unfortunate match between Owen Hart and Stone Cold Steve Austin that changed Austin's career. And I don't think he would have had his last match against The Rock at WrestleMania 19 had that pile driver not happened. I think he would have retired probably 5 years ago, to be honest. We would have had Austin this whole time. He'd probably be in the ring like Taker. Hopefully not hanging on that long, though, but yeah. Happy anniversary, SummerSlam 1997. One of my personal favorite pay-per-views and really the last good memory that I have of Bret Hart in WWE because, oh my God, did it go downhill after that. Right down the shitter. Literally a month later, they do the crappy Ground Zero match with the Patriot. Then they're in Madison Square Garden for Raw. Vince says, Bret, I want out of the contract. I want you to go to WCW. Oh, by the way, you got to drop the belt to Shawn on your way at the door. 2 weeks after that, Brian Pillman passes away. Oh my God, just what an awful time. I mean, and the summer was so glorious. Right after WrestleMania, Bret and Austin had that bloodbath at WrestleMania 13 that really kickstarted that USA-Canada feud into the summer. Even with Bret injured, in a wheelchair, TV was still fantastic. The Monday Night Raws were good. The feuds were good. Canadian Stampede, probably the best in your house of all time. Bret wins his 5th WWE title at SummerSlam, and then literally immediately right down the toilet from there. And by the time we got to Survivor Series, I was one depressed Hitman fan. That's for sure. But it was a good day on August 3rd back in 1997. Daniel, are you here? Because I drove you home that night, and I remember rocking out to Bret's music in the car. That was fun times, man. Fun times. No, Motor City, I don't know what happened to it. That's the thing. I want to say I threw it away. The problem with that poster is that it was folded. It was folded several times into a square. I think the video store did that. So, and plus I wasn't, I didn't take care of things as well back then. So it had a lot of wear and tear on it. And eventually the corners started getting fucked up when I was changing frames, and it had those creases all in it. And I can't even envision myself, no matter how bad a shape that poster was in, I can't envision myself throwing it away but I don't have it anymore. I don't know where it is. I have a box of old stuff like that I keep, and every time I've gone through that box, that poster's nowhere to be found. So maybe I'll just splurge one day on eBay and see if I can pick one up or something. I would imagine something like that would be quite pricey, but if I ever wanted to bring it back, I would. But that's one thing I remember about the poster is that they folded it. So you had just looked like two different tic-tac-toe boards on the poster, one on top, one on bottom. So that was annoying. But yeah, good times, man. Back in the day when I was just a snot-nosed little punk. Now I'm a snot-nosed old punk. Yeah, well, WWE, there's sometimes they do that, Ronnie, with the pay-per-views. Now there's so many of them. Sometimes you can have them right at the beginning of the month where, I think most pay-per-views are just best. The third Sunday in every month is when there should be a pay-per-view, but it gets so weird now, and the logistics and the timing of everything and how you schedule everything out, they just kind of have to do them when they do them. And I remember not being a fan of them going to 12. I thought that was just way too many. I remember when In Your House came around. I bought a couple of the In Your Houses because they were only $20, but still $20 25 years ago was probably like 33 or $34 today. So it was still kind of expensive to do it. But when WCW and WWE started, one-upping each other, and WCW kind of started it, I think they upped it first. Then WWE added the In Your Houses, then WCW added a few more, and then WWE countered by eliminating In Your Houses and making everything 3 hours. And then you had both companies, one pay-per-view each per month, 3 hours each, $40 each. So if you wanted to watch, you could essentially watch 24 pay-per-views for $80 a month. Damn. I bought all the WWEs, and I probably bought 2 WCWs per year. But I would usually see them all. Sometimes somebody I would know would get the WCW show, and I'd go over there and watch it. But every now and then, if it was a big enough match, like I've talked about in Halloween Havoc 1998, I did a review on that show, by the way. You can check it out on my channel. I watched that by myself at my apartment, and the Goldberg DDP match did not shut off for me. I watched it. I was able to watch the whole thing. I had no idea anything even happened. I do remember the screen cutting out, but it came right back up. So why? And plus, there was no internet back then. So I was just watching the show with no idea that the rest of the country wasn't seeing the match. I was one of the few people that did not get their feed interrupted, probably just because of the little shitty little company that I had, or cable company that I used back in the day. I can't remember what it was called back in North Carolina. They sucked, though, and it was a pain in the butt dealing with them. Marcus Metcalf, good to see you, man. Appreciate the 5. Speaking of pile drivers, Bailey should have given, or at least teased, giving Kyrie a pile driver as a send-off. Favorite SummerSlam, yours is 2002. 2002 is on my list. I did a top favorite SummerSlam video, I think. No, I didn't think I did a top favorite SummerSlam matches. SummerSlam 02 is up there. That had some matches. I remember the hot opener with Angle and Ray. Wasn't there some sort of big Intercontinental title match on that show too? Was it ladder? I don't know if it was Eddie or Jericho or Flair. Somebody's involved in that. Brock and Rock, of course. Shawn Michaels coming back to face Triple H. That was a stacked card, man. I still am going. I have a weird one. I just have a weird one because of a personal memory. One of my personal favorites is SummerSlam 1990. I thought it was a great show. It was at the Philadelphia Spectrum prior to Philly building the first Union Center, Wachovia Center, whatever it's called now. I was there in 99 for WrestleMania 15. I think that building's still there. It's where the 76ers and the Flyers play. Prior to that, it was a Spectrum, and it was a smaller building, a lot less fans, but the atmosphere was incredible. And I remember that night on SummerSlam, it was just, and it was still a big arena. I don't know how many it held, 10, 12,000, maybe 15,000 or something like that, but still slightly smaller than your standard arena today. And just the way it felt, just the fans were just packed in there, and you had Vince McMahon and Roddy Piper on commentary, and Piper was like off his rocker completely. And the show opened up so hot. I think like the second match on the card was Kerry Von Erich beating Mr. Perfect for the title, and the crowd fucking losing their mind. And then my favorite tag team match of all time, Demolition and Hart Foundation, 2 out of 3 falls, with Legion of Doom getting involved and everything, and Hart's won the title. And we had 2 big title changes there. And then we also had the double main event with Hogan taking on Earthquake. And we had Ultimate Warrior and Rick Rude in a cage, which was the best cage match and one of the better matches Ultimate Warrior has ever had. And WWE showcased Rick Rude pretty heavily in that. Even though he did not win the title, he beat the shit out of the Ultimate Warrior and had him beat twice. And that was interesting to me because WWE always puts over their big baby faces as superheroes. And Warrior looked like a chump in that match. Because the only thing, Warrior didn't win the match. Rick Rude lost it. The only reason he lost is because he wanted to deliver punishment onto the Warrior instead of climbing down the cage and winning the title. So Rude's got his own stupidity to blame for that, but the fact that he had more experience and knew what to do in a cage match that showed in the match. He kind of had control of the match most of the way and then went on to win it, but just couldn't resist diving off the top. Warrior countered, was able to beat Rude up and then climb over the top and win the match, but Rude should have beat him. And I found that to be interesting. There was some dumb shit on the show too, sewer rats and Damien and, you know, a couple of other weird things that went down. But overall, I think the show was fun, had a great atmosphere. And as a kid, I remember I had to start school the next day. The next day was the first day of school. So I remember staying up, watching the pay-per-view and being like kind of bittersweet. Like I was excited to start school again. I was probably 8th grade, I suppose. But at the same time, I was like, I hate starting school and it's tomorrow, but I'm excited about SummerSlam, but shit, tomorrow I got to go to school. And I just remember the whole weekend. I like remember it vividly. And that I think is why I rank SummerSlam 90 as my favorite, but that's because I'm old. But more modern SummerSlams, 02 for sure is on my list. Beyond 02, maybe 13, maybe 14, Brock and Punk, Brock and Cena, Bryan and winning the title and all that, and then getting screwed. Some of those years are pretty good. I think 15 was pretty good too, right? Taker and Brock and Seth and Cena, right? So there's been some okay ones, but yeah, I'm going 90 on that, Marcus. Going 90. All right, what else do we need to talk about? I'll hang out for a little bit longer here, and then we'll get out of here. Let me check over here to Twatter. Some of your responses are pretty funny sometimes. Yeah, what else we got to talk about? You guys can hit me with any questions that you want. I'm trying to think of the schedule for this week. I'm working on 3 reviews right now. I don't think I'm going to get one of them up this week, though. Maybe at the end of the week. There's a chance I could hit you with a video on Friday, right before the Winged Eagle on Saturday, but I'm not 100% sure yet. But yeah, right now my next day I'm scheduled to be back up here is on Saturday for the podcast as usual, but I've been working on a couple of other smaller videos too because I felt like I need to get some more content out during the week on the channel because I've not been pleased with my numbers at all lately. They've actually been slightly concerning, so I want to try to get some more action on the channel here and try to continue to funnel content into it to try to keep the ball rolling. Last week hasn't been horrible, but man, our numbers are just down across the board, but that's just due to COVID and that's just due to wrestling in general. Not as many people are watching, so if I'm not watching a show, I'm not going to go watch a review of the show. So I think it's just kind of the nature of the beast right now, but I still want to try to put content on this channel, you know what I mean? We're just in a really shitty time right now. But dang. I'd have to think about that Mass to MS for some underrated or forgotten Bret Hart matches to recommend. Man, he had so many good singles matches. I mean, Bret would work a lot like primetime wrestling matches. I remember, actually, you can probably find a bunch from, go look up some primetime wrestling or maybe some wrestling challenges from 89-ish. It would have been when they broke up the Hearts the first time, not during Bret's Intercontinental title win in like 91. They broke them up once before first for some reason to try to move them to singles before putting them back together and then breaking them up again. And that initial run, Bret worked a lot of matches with Perfect. But at that time, Hennig was new, and it was all about making him. So Bret put him over in all these matches. Great matches. And then later on, Kurt would return the favor when it was time to make Bret. So maybe some of those in those early days. Otherwise, I really got to think in terms of matches that I don't think about that often but are really good. I don't even think this is underrated, but maybe Hakushi, Bret in your house. I got to really think about if there are any TV matches, because what I'm trying to think of here are probably just some good TV matches. And off the top of my head, I can't think of any. Brett had 2 or 3 run-ins on TV and matches with Owen. I know there was an Action Zone match between Brett and Owen in like 94, 95. Just on Action Zone on a Sunday, randomly, one week that Brett won, which is pretty good. Little matches here or there. I'd have to really think about that and dig into my own collection a little bit to find some good ones. Because I got so many Bret Hart tapes and DVDs and stuff. Especially those old VHSs. Zane, 10 more dropping in, man. Appreciate you a lot. I'm on the WWE Network at times. I'm watching the Raws leading up to Owen Hart death the next night. Did they drop the Triple H versus Rock feud? It was never mentioned after Owen Hart's death. No, they kept it a little while past that. That went on all the way until the Higher Power, because as a matter of fact, they booked a Rock and Triple H match that night. It was the Higher Power deal, and then Vince was revealed. Fans hated it, and that's when Stephanie and Linda showed up and announced that like Austin was the new CEO or something. He came out there with a tie. He made a whole bunch of matches for that night, and he made like a cast match or something. I think he made Triple H put a cast on his leg and then fight The Rock or something like that. So it went in a little further, and then after that, Triple H was starting to transition, I think, into babyface. Because that would have been 99. No, I'm sorry, Rock was babyface. Rock was transitioning into babyface. He had already pretty much been a babyface. He was working with Triple H, and then after that, what did Triple H do? I can't remember. Oh, yeah, that's right. He won the title. That's right. He was in the title feud. So I think they were just moving them apart so Triple H could win the belt. Because then didn't Rock work with Billy? Bob? But my name's Billy. Remember, that was all that shit. I was there. King of the Ring. Oh, the chair's not here. I have the chair. King of the Ring 99. Billy won the tournament. Rock buried him the next night in the promo, and they worked SummerSlam, and they gave Triple H the match with Jesse Ventura and Austin and all that. So I don't think there's really any real reason other than they had different ideas for both of them going forward. And the previous year, they'd already worked plenty. They had worked Fully Loaded, and they had worked SummerSlam in the ladder match. So I don't think they really needed to do that again to where they worked Fully Loaded again and then worked SummerSlam again. So that's probably why. And did they work Fully Loaded in 99? Rock and Hunter? Maybe they did. I think they worked, they worked Over the Edge too. Okay, so maybe they did work Fully Loaded 99. That was the blood match or the Taker, Austin, first blood match or something. Vince was involved in that, and then Vince got like kicked out of the company after that. Taker would wind up getting hurt and being gone until the Badass returned. Austin would drop the belt to SummerSlam, or to Mick at SummerSlam, and then Foley would drop it the next night to Triple H. I remember all that. I don't recall how the... I remember now. That's right, because Rock and Triple H did work 2 straight Fully Loadeds. I just don't remember. I don't remember. I should remember. Zane making it rain in here. Dude, appreciate 10 more. Because I remembered it was a casket match between Undertaker and Rock where Triple H destroyed it with a sledgehammer. That's right, he did. He was whacking at the casket. I think that was before Owen died, like right before. Okay. I was thinking the strap match was 98. That's right, it wasn't. 98 was more focused on DX and Nation. Now it's all coming back to me. That's right. And then they did the strap match in 99. Thank you, Researcher Barry. Appreciate it. There you go, Masta. That's another underrated one, although I don't know if that would qualify as underrated because people know about it. Bret Hart, Randy Savage, Saturday Night's Main Event. That is important to this wrestling fan because I watched my favorite Saturday Night's Main Event of all time literally 2 weeks before I moved from Detroit to North Carolina, right before we left in October. Saturday Night's Main Event, Honky Tonk Man, Intercontinental title match against Randy Savage. Savage had just turned babyface, lost the title just a few months prior to that in Pontiac. I was there for that. And now he lost his Steamboat. Steamboat dropped it to Honky. Now Honky's going to take on Savage for the title and shit. And that's where they did the Miss Elizabeth thing, where she's pushed down and Hogan comes out there to make the save and the mega powers are born, right? So much going on that show. But one of the things on that show that happened is when Honky was facing Savage, and Savage hit him with the top rope elbow, and Hunky got disqualified. The reason he got disqualified is because Bret Hart, the Hart Foundation were both out there, but Bret Hart was the one that made the save. He dove in the ring, hit Savage, caused the referee to call for the DQ, and that's why they set up Savage and Bret one-on-one, because it was really Bret that cost Savage the Intercontinental title. And they had a hell of a match. And Bret Hart removed Savage's boot and went to town on his ankle, and Savage had to work the whole match on one leg. And Bret looked good, and it was a good match. And Savage, I think, wind up winning with a small package or something. But it was a really good match during a time that Bret really wasn't focused on as a singles at all. It was just a random singles match for him. But that might have been one of the first times that WWE said, yeah, this guy can go. If we ever want to make him a single star on his own, there's no reason why, he's every single bit as good as Randy Savage or somebody else his size. So I think that was probably one of the first nights that they realized Bret had potential as a single. It still took him 3 years to get there, but things move a lot slowly now. Sometimes it takes guys 10 years to get noticed. Look at Kofi, look at Drew, look at a lot of guys now. So yeah, that is definitely one. That match in '87, I highly recommend it. Oh yeah, the In Your House, the John PCO match and In Your House was okay, and it was a good match. The only thing I didn't like about that is I thought the gimmick and the angle was dumb. Like, they were doing the pirate thing with him, and I guess he had stolen Bret Hart's jacket, which they were trying to say that Bret Hart's mom made for him or something. I'm like, bullshit. Helen did not make that jacket. Helen would not make that jacket. Maybe she does. I don't know. I don't think Helen made that leather jacket, though, basically. So it was all important to Bret, and they were just creating, like, imaginary heat that just didn't work. But if you were just judging the match in a vacuum in the ring by itself, hell yeah, it was really good. Pierre could go. Pierre can still go. Dude is still relevant in 2020. With the Ring of Honor stuff and everything. He's great. Yo, what's up, Devlin? Thank you for 5 more. I'm back, and here is more money. By the way, getting the car this weekend. Nice. Are you going with the Civic? Or you changed your mind and got something else? That's great news, dude. I'm loving mine. I'm a couple of months, or no, I'm about a month into mine now. I got to make my first payment tomorrow on that car, actually. And I'm loving mine, man. It's so nice. It is so nice. It almost has a little bit too many features for me. I'm not used to, because my last car was an 07, and then I got a 2018 that I only drove for a year, but it wasn't, aside from a touch screen and shit like that, it wasn't super souped up. This one's got, like, lane correction. It fucking steers for me. It brakes for me, does all this stuff, and it's a little too much. I'm not trying to drive a space shuttle here, but at the same time, it's nice to have something bougie, you know what I mean? Yeah, going with the Civic, sweet. Yeah, I got the 2020 EX. Yeah, EX. Moonroof and the whole deal. 4-door. They're nice. I like the hatchbacks, but in the end, I went with the bigger one. Good luck on that. Tweet me a pic when you get it. What's going on, Midwest Goon? Good to see you. Boy, we've been talking about some stuff tonight. My God, what a wacky-ass Raw we had. I'll hang out here until the top of the hour, and then I will probably bounce. We'll see if any guys want to talk about anything else here. Stephen Harris, Kevin Von Erich versus Abdullah the Butcher. You saw that match? You saw that match live? That would be cool. I'm going to do a review. I thought about maybe doing a live reaction to SummerSlam Ryan, but I did one on Extreme Rules, and I was not happy with the audience, so I'm doing a review. Not nearly as many people. Now, I think it was last year or the year before, I had a crazy audience for SummerSlam doing a live reaction, but there's going to be so much to talk about on that show, and usually when I'm doing a live reaction, by the time the show is over, I don't want to stay up for another 2 hours and review it, so I'd rather watch it, enjoy it, tweet about it, make my notes, and come up and do a review. So that'll be the story for SummerSlam. But next time there's a weird pay-per-view or anything weird going on, maybe I'll just randomly do a reaction to see how it goes. Oh, cool. You're getting the same one. Nice. Nice. Oh, your car is an 04 Corolla. Oh, yeah, that is a bit old. Civics are nicer than Corollas. Because I think of Toyota and Honda, it's like, the Corolla and the Civic, and then you got the Accord and the Camry. And I think Maybe the Camry is a bit nicer. I've been in some new Camrys, and they're pretty nice. But when it comes to Corolla versus Civic, it's like Civic hands down, not even close. I think Corollas are kind of ugly, where the Civic is just real cool on the inside and very nice, and it's fast and everything. But I think Toyota might have the nod on the higher model. I think the Camry is better than the Accord, but the Civic is definitely better than the Corolla. Good. Enjoy. What color are you getting? Mine's black. I just got my windows tinted too. Now it's black and black. Black and black. Oh, no, Devlin. No news on the cruise. A lot of people have dropped it recently. I have not gotten any emails. Now, I put my deposit down for the Jericho cruise to get on the waiting list. I'll check my email right now. I have not seen. I checked my email earlier. I saw nothing from the cruise. Nothing yet. So maybe the waiting, maybe I was pretty far down on the waiting list. I would assume they would contact me when a spot was available, but I have not heard anything yet. So, but I put down the $199. I'm on the list. And according to that, they just said that they'll let me know. But they also made me pick my room, like which room I wanted for the waiting list. So maybe they have to wait for that particular one, but I'll kind of take whatever they got. I'll log in here maybe tonight or tomorrow and into the cruise website and check it out. Nice, you're getting a black one too. Damn, we're gonna have. Are you single white femaling me, Devlin? I knew one of my friends. She had an old friend from high school or something, and they kind of hung out. And the one friend was kind of obsessed with her a little bit, sort of. And she went and bought the same car, and they lived in the same town. Like she went and bought the same car, same model, same year, and then like drove up to her house. And I remember her telling me, she goes, "Greg, I think I'm getting single white femaled." So I think you're doing that to me, Devlin. I'm kidding. Enjoy the Civic, man. They are sweet. And they're the #1 best-selling car in the country, or maybe even the world. So, and even in my like apartment complexes I live here and stuff, there's like 1,000 Civics. So everybody drives a Civic. So yeah, I don't think you're stalking me. It's all good. Zane, thank you, dude, for 5 more. I am going to have to sign off here so you don't run out of money, but I appreciate all your generosity tonight. WWE building matches for Payback during SummerSlam event. That's could be, and that was one of my concerns. We talked about this on Saturday. I'm like, if it's going to be an all-women's pay-per-view or something, that means they're going to have to try to build 2 at the same time, and they can't wipe their own ass right now. They can't build 1 show, much less 2 at the same time. So how in the hell are they going to pull that off? So that's why I'm like suspicious to what Payback is. If it's just some like little extra pay-per-view that they're making for storyline purposes, much like Tuesday in Texas was back in the day. So it's almost as if they're going to have to treat SummerSlam like a TV show and build up some matches for Payback, or at least announce some matches for Payback on SummerSlam, because your Raw and SmackDown after SummerSlam are going to have to be a combination of SummerSlam Fallout and Payback Go Home. You got 1 week literally, to build Payback with all of their focus being on SummerSlam. And then the very next night, it was like, oh, we got a pay-per-view in 6 days. Let's start building that. But, oh, we still got to talk about everything that happened last night. Bruce, can you handle all this, dude? Are you sure you can do this and maintain your sanity? I have not listened to a Something to Wrestle podcast in over a year. That's how far behind I am. I've not listened to either one of those 2 guys' voices in so long. Nothing against them. I don't know. I just guess I got a little over. I was listening to it so much. Maybe I was getting slightly over Conrad just a bit, even though he's cool. I don't know why I lost interest so hard, but it's been a long time since I've listened to a Something to Wrestle. So I don't know how Bruce is doing. I don't know how his mental capacities are. I hope he's all right, because he's got one hell of a plate, a full plate, and I don't know how he's doing it. Yeah, rematches from SummerSlam, because that's the thing with the title of the pay-per-view too being Payback. That kind of ties in. It's like, oh, you get some payback for all the fucked up shit you did to us at SummerSlam. So that's why I think we're going to get some sketchy title changes, and that could be multiple. We could get more than one, and then they're all scheduled to do it all again a week later. But if you're going to do that, what's the point of SummerSlam? I don't know. I don't know why that is on the calendar. I don't understand. Hey, what's up, Vincente? Yeah, we've been talking about that tonight. We mentioned that a couple of different times. Oh my gosh. if my beautiful, wonderful girlfriend Elizabeth is listening, I typed this long text to you and I forgot to send it, so I'm hitting send now. Sorry about that, love. I'll text you when I'm done here. Don't you hate it when you do that? Anyway, yeah, Vincente, we mentioned that a couple of times tonight, that the 23-year anniversary of SummerSlam 1997 is today. I even put up a picture of my apartment. So scroll back to that. I put up a picture of my apartment from 1997 when I was 19 years old. 20, I'm sorry. And I had the SummerSlam 97 poster hanging over my little shitty TV that I had back in the day. Oh yeah, Barry. Well, I'm not going to show. I don't have a problem with their advertisements, because that is a big sword. That's how you make your money. I mean, I've gotten a couple of advertising offers, but they've been weird, so I haven't really responded. But if somebody ever wants to advertise here, I'll do it. The cool thing too is, like, if you're listening in the car or something to a podcast, or even on your phone, you can just fast forward, or you can just fast forward 10 seconds or 30 seconds or whatever it is. So whenever I'm like in the car listening to a podcast, Jericho's is the same way, and he moves into one of his advertisements, I just click fast forward a couple times, just zap right through it. Oh, I did, Marcus, my bad. Oh, I think I saw you, I just haven't gotten to it yet, but I got you, Marcus. Thank you, dude. Appreciate the 2 thoughts on AEW going head to head with NXT TakeOver. We talked about that earlier on too, and I guess we were going to elaborate on that, so thanks for reminding me. I think that's awesome. So I think it's the next 3 Dynamites, right? This starts next week, I think, or is it the week after? I got it written down right here. Basically, it's going to be 3 consecutive weeks that they're going to move Dynamite to another night, because they are going to, because TNT needs to play the NBA playoffs. So these are the dates here. So the first one is the night. Okay. Oh no, I'm sorry. I got that all fucking wrong. The first one is the 19th. So the first one is the August 19th edition, is moved to Saturday the 22nd. That is going head-to-head with TakeOver. The other 2 are the following week on August 26th, which will just be bumped one night after to Thursday, and then another one in September. So this must not be due to the playoffs. This must be due to something else. The one in September is also going to be bumped to the following night of the 17th on Thursday. So it's 3 dates that they have pre-announced, 2 this month, 1 next, and the first one is going to be airing on a Saturday night head-to-head with TakeOver 30, which I think is great because, if you want to have like a war between the companies, you need to do things to, I don't think that's really a coincidence. TNT probably had several options of nights for them to move to. They're like, no, put us on Saturday. We'll go up against NXT. And that might be good. And I don't think they're going to do much to damage NXT, because I don't care what kind of a card Dynamite puts together, because they should stack it. They should really make a huge card here just to mess with WWE. I don't care. If you got a main event with Keith Lee and Karrion Kross, I'm watching that. I don't care what you do on Dynamite. I'm watching that first. I'll record Dynamite, watch it later, kind of thing. But I definitely think that's the right call, because WWE does it to them. AEW moved to Wednesdays. When they announced their show, they put it on Wednesdays, and then WWE's like, okay, we'll leave the network and we'll come to the USA Network and we'll double the time of our show and we'll go head-to-head against you. So they're constantly doing that to each other. Then AEW does the Fyter Fest, the 2-part Fyter Fest on TNT, and WWE does a 2-part Great American Bash that they threw together at the last minute and beat them in the ratings both nights. So they need some payback here. So I think TakeOver 30 is now going to have a little bit of competition on TNT, and that's good. That's what they should do. And I'm curious what the ratings are going to be for some of these shows, because AEW's getting the news out to their fans so far ahead of time that the fans should be able to remember this. And when you're running a show unopposed, I'm curious what the ratings are going to do, because it's not like they're airing on whack-ass times, right? They are pretty much normal. The Saturday show is different. That comes on at 6, I think, primarily to go head-to-head against NXT. But the other 2 Dynamites that they're moving on the 26th and September 16th are remaining at the same time, and just 1 day later. So what's the difference between a Thursday at 8 p.m. and a Wednesday at 8 p.m.? Doesn't matter. So I think they really have a chance, especially on those Thursday shows. The Saturday night one will be weird, because they are going to have TakeOver on the network that they're going to have to worry about. But the other 2, I think if they don't get 1 million viewers on those shows, that will be a letdown. not only for them, but for the fans, because they should get 1 million viewers on those nights. There's no NXT. There's no division between the fans. That's the number that they should shoot for there, is 1 million. And it might be a little bit of a test too. Like if they pull in some crazy rating, they might say to themselves, holy shit, we can do really well if we run unopposed. The only problem with that is if they move their show, what's stopping WWE from moving theirs too and just following them and continuing to mess with them and go head to head. So it'll be interesting. Sorry for misquoting those earlier when we opened up the show. I was thinking it was the 3 final Dynamites of the month. It's not. It's the final 2 and then 1 more in mid-September. So I had that wrong. Apologize for that. Yeah, and I'm hoping, I made that tweet today too, Devlin. I kind of hope AEW does that at the last minute. They will rebrand Dynamite just for that August 22nd show as something else. I had suggested Summerfest, that of course Jeremy Piven brilliantly came up with on Monday Night Raw that year, or Colossal Tussle, which rumors are that was one of the names originally considered for what became WrestleMania. They almost called it Colossal Tussle. Could you imagine if we were coming up on Colossal Tussle 37? I don't know if I'd be a wrestling fan, to be honest. So I think Dynamite should do that, and I think there's a really good and fair chance that AEW will. That they'll say, hey, WWE did it, and they trolled us by not only rebranding their show something else, something to go up against us, but they used Dusty's idea. What a bunch of dicks. So I think they should definitely do something, and they should just find some name that's got some WWE connection that's not trademarked yet. WWE didn't trademark Summerfest or Colossal Tussle. They better not have. Why would they? So I think they should take one of those names just to troll them. Wouldn't that be funny? AEW, Colossal Tussle. I think that would be fabulous. Fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. So I hope they do something like that, and I think there's a pretty good chance they will. They got some time to think about it because WWE, they didn't give us any pre-warning on Great American Bash. How much warning did we get? 1 week? Wasn't it the week before? Maybe 2 weeks, but I want to say it was the week before. They said, next week, we're going to do the Great American Bash. And you're like, oh, didn't know about that. And they only did it to fuck with Fyter Fest. So what goes around comes around. Probably one of the best lessons my father ever taught me, because that theory is as consistent as gravity. It's very true. What goes around comes around. And I think AEW should hit WWE with something like that, something similar. I hope they do. All right. We are exactly 2 hours in now, so I think that'll wrap it up for this stream. I'm going to go ahead and get out of here now and have some dinner. But man, this is a fun Monday Night Raw to talk about. I want you guys to continue telling me stuff in the comments after I sign off here. If you're watching this after the fact, I want to know ideas. I need ideas, man. So like next week, who do you think is not only behind this faction? Who do you think is in it? Do you agree with me that Shane McMahon is using the Raw Underground as a front for that to make everybody think that that's what his motivation is, and he's secretly either funding or leading or controlling the faction that's doing all this damage? What do you think is going to happen at at SummerSlam with Asuka and Sasha? And because Asuka is going to get the match. She'll have to beat Bayley next week, right? And that's going to end because plus Bayley was pissed tonight, or not pissed, but she was subtly kind of like, oh, you're just volunteering me to face her. Okay, nice friend there. So if she winds up losing, that could add to a lot of that. And let me know all your ideas. What do you think the future is going to be for the Hurt Business and the Raw Underground crap and Dominik and everything else weird and wacky and kooky that they did tonight? Let me know. Let me know in the comments below. And we'll keep our eye, like I said, on that news story of The Rock and buying the XFL, because there was a last-minute motion filed today by the creditors to prevent the sale. But if it all goes through, The Rock and Danny Garcia, who's his ex-wife, him and Danny are the parents of Simone. I think it's so cool they remained so close after their divorce. They're business partners, and he put her over huge. She's like one of the first female sports league owners now and stuff, which is a pretty cool thing. She's really smart, and they've partnered up with this Redbird capital investment firm to purchase the XFL. And provided if this goes to any sort of long-term, court battles or litigation or anything like that, hopefully it can be allowed and the sale can be allowed to go through. But I'm not a business guy. I don't know the details. I don't know if the creditors are mad because maybe they're not going to get their money now because the bankruptcy and now it being purchased. And it was only purchased for $15 million. And apparently it's split. So I think Rock and Danny are splitting it with Redbird, and it's $7 million each. So it's a pretty small investment for The Rock. You know, when The Rock needs to come up with $7 million, he's probably like, well, shit, all 20's okay. Here you go. You know, I'll take it. Let me look in my cushions in my couch. I can probably pull out about that much. The dude's like wipes his ass with 50s, man. He's a billionaire. The Rock's got so much money. So to me, it's a pretty minor investment. And it makes you wonder when you see that figure, and I'm sure there's more involved there, but if the league was purchased for $15 million, why couldn't Vince just kept it? The quarter two financial numbers this past week were ridiculous. They had $43 million in profits this quarter alone, which was like $25 million more than they projected. Why can't you just take $15 million of that and buy the XFL? I know it's more complicated than that, but when you hear the numbers that were involved here, they seem quite low, and it makes you wonder why it was so impossible for Vince to hang on to this. It's all about the money, isn't it? Anyway, all right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and bail out of here. I appreciate you guys hanging out. Let me scroll down one more time because I don't want to leave any super chats hanging because I would feel very guilty. All right, cool. We're good. All right, Devlin and Barry and Zane, I appreciate you guys. I appreciate everybody hanging out tonight. You guys take care, and try to keep a lookout on the channel. Make sure you're subscribed because I might hit you with a video this week. Otherwise, I will catch you on Saturday for the Winged Eagle podcast. Y'all be good. Take care. I'll catch you soon. Peace.